Regarding this matter, I have already scolded Zhao Feng. The matter of Prince Qi was indeed my wife's fault, but she did it for the sake of my Qin family, Qin Yuansheng said coldly. Qin Yuanzi's eyes flickered, and he wanted to say something, but Qin Yuansheng interrupted him, saying seriously, "Second brother, this matter is already in the past. What we are discussing now is the matter of Qin Chen offending Grandmaster Liang Yu. Our Qin family must give Grandmaster Liang Yu an explanation." Explanation? What explanation? Do you really want to expel Qin Chen? I don't agree, Qin Yuanzi said, suppressing his anger. Yuanzi, don't be impulsive. Qin Yuanzi, it's not your turn to make decisions about the Qin family's affairs. Yuansheng is the head of the family, you need to be clear about your position. Several elders said angrily. Qin Yuanzi looked at those elders who were furious, with sharp eyes but extremely vicious intentions, and suddenly felt a sense of inexplicable chill and disgust in his heart. He looked at Qin Yuansheng, he believed that Qin Yuansheng would make the right decision. Under the gaze of everyone, Qin Yuansheng calmly looked at Qin Yuqi, and said without a trace of emotion, "Third sister, what do you say?" A trace of desolate smile appeared on Qin Yuqi's face, and she said, "Why are you still asking me? You have always acted decisively. Since you convened this family meeting, don't you already have an idea in your heart?" Chenair is right. Since the Qin family doesn't welcome us, then we mother and son should just move out. Third sister, Qin Yuanzi exclaimed. Second brother, I know you're doing this for my own good, but look at the faces of these people in the Qin family. Qin Yuqi stood up. Her young and beautiful face was full of fortitude, a layer of mist covered her eyes, but she stopped herself from letting it fall, and looked at the many elders above the hall one by one. These elders, some are of her generation, and some are her uncles, all of them are talking about the Qin family, but as Chenair said, in all these years, have they ever regarded themselves as members of the Qin family? Qin Yuqi, do you know what you are saying? The second elder said angrily. Of course I know what I'm saying. Seeing the faces of you selfish and self-serving so-called elders, I feel disgusted, I want to vomit, I really feel ashamed for you being members of the Qin family. You. Several elders trembled with anger, almost fainted, pointed at Qin Yuqi with their fingers, and couldn't speak for a long time. Aren't you just regretting that I didn't marry His Majesty back then, so that you could become relatives of the imperial family? In all these years, what have you done for the Qin family? The entire Qin family was built by my father. He risked his life outside, but what about you? Qin Yuqi bit her teeth, trying her best not to let her tears fall. Her eyes were filled with grief and indignation, wanting to rise to power by relying on a woman. I feel ashamed for you. The faces of many elders were burning hot after being said that by Qin Yuqi, and their hearts trembled with anger. The second elder said angrily, then haven't you been living in the Qin family all these years? Our Qin family has also raised you for so many years. Without the Qin family, could you mother and son have survived? You are all white-eyed wolves after all. Qin Yuqi smiled miserably, and said sadly, this Dingwu prince's mansion is my father's mansion, what does it have to do with you? In all these years, which of the things we mother and son lived on was not earned by myself? What effort have you made? Speaking of this, Qin Yuqi suddenly raised her head, stared at Qin Yuansheng sitting at the top, then looked at Qin Chen standing there, and said softly, Chenair, this place can't accommodate us. Let's go, mother and son. Qin Chen nodded, and said firmly, Mother, I will never let you suffer any hardship. After the two finished speaking, they turned and walked towards the outside of the hall. Third sister, Qin Yuanzi exclaimed, and even looked at Qin Yuansheng. At the same time, Qin Gang and a group of guards also stood in front of Qin Chen and Qin Yuqi, preventing the two from moving forward. Qin Chen's eyes turned cold. Little beast, you offended Grandmaster Liang Yu, putting my Qin family in such a state. Do you think you can just leave? Zhao Feng said with a grim expression, Family head, elders, I think it's better to capture this little beast directly and send him to Grandmaster Liang Yu. Qin Yuqi turned around, ignored Zhao Feng's yelling, and stared directly at Qin Yuansheng. Qin Yuansheng, do you still want to keep my mother and son? The cold voice sounded, and the perseverance revealed in Qin Yuqi's eyes made everyone's hearts tremble. How many years have they not seen such cold eyes from Qin Yuqi? Let them go. Qin Yuansheng's eyes were indifferent, without a trace of emotion, and finally said slowly. Family head. Zhao Feng immediately screamed. I said let them go. Qin Yuansheng said word by word, with majesty in his voice, and said to a steward beside him, go to the accounting room and give them 500 silver coins. Mother, we don't need the arms of the Qin family, let's go, son will not let you suffer. Qin Chen said coldly, then took Qin Yuqi's hand and left the council hall. And everyone in this hall watched Qin Yuqi and her son walk out of the hall so firmly and disappear at the door. For more than 10 years, many elders of the Qin family have been single-mindedly trying to drive Qin Yuqi out of the Qin family, but at this time, they did not have much excitement in their hearts. Alas, big brother, you have disappointed me too much. Qin Yuanzi looked angry, waved his hand, and left the council hall directly. After leaving the Qin mansion, Qin Yuqi said, Qin, mother has made you suffer. It doesn't matter if mother suffers a little grievance. Mother is just afraid that you will suffer. Qin Chen looked indifferently at the gate of the Qin mansion, and said lightly, Mother, if you believe in your son, then rest assured, in a few days, your son will definitely make you live a good life. A trace of worry flashed across Qin Yuqi's eyes. Qin, you must not do anything illegal or disorderly. Qin Chen laughed. Mother, don't you believe in your son that much? Mother believes in you. Mother believes in you no matter what. Qin Yuqi looked at Qin Chen lovingly. In her eyes, Qin was always the best. Third sister, stop. A loud voice suddenly sounded, and the two turned to look, only to see Qin Yuanzi leading Qin Ying all the way to catch up. Qin Yuanzi sighed, and said, Third sister, why are you doing this? I know that you have always been stubborn, but Qin is still young, aren't you making him suffer by doing this? Qin Yuqi said indifferently, Second brother, wouldn't I suffer in the Qin family? Qin Yuanzi opened his mouth, and finally sighed helplessly. He also knew the situation of Qin Yuqi in the Qin mansion, but he was also unable to do anything about it. After all, Qin Yuansheng was still in charge of the Qin family. It would be great if father was here. Qin Yuanzi smiled bitterly. This time, big brother has gone too far. All right, second brother, don't take it to heart. I've been in the Qin family for so many years, and I'm tired. I want to live a quiet life alone. No matter what, Yuqi will always think of you as her second brother. Qin Yuanzi was silent. He took out a stack of silver notes from his person. Third sister, here's some money. Take it for now. No. Second brother, I can't accept this. Just listen to me. Qin Yuanzi forced the money into Qin Yuqi's hand. I know you don't have much savings. Living in the royal capital requires money in every aspect. Putting aside everything else, if you don't have money, where will you and Qin stay tonight? You're fine, but what about Qin? Qin Yuanzi's last words stopped Qin Yuqi from refusing. As a mother, how could she bear to let her child suffer? Second brother, Yuqi thanks you. Don't say that. If you have any difficulties in the future, look for me. If you can't find me, look for Ying. Don't try to endure it, understand? Qin Yuqi nodded, her eyes slightly moist. Nearby, Qin Ying curiously sized up her little cousin. Qin Chen, why do I feel like you're different than before? Really? Yingji, you must be mistaken. Qin Chen said with a smile, showing no worry or disappointment about leaving the Qin family. You are different. You're much more confident than before. In the past, you were always timid in front of Yingji, afraid to say anything. That's because Yingji is too beautiful. I used to be too shy to speak when I saw you. It must be said that Qin Ying was a perfect beauty. At the age of 18, she was extremely well developed, with a curvaceous figure. Her curves were where they should be, and especially those long legs were tight and slender, a beautiful sight to behold. A blush appeared on Qin Ying's face, and she said with feigned anger, You little rascal, you dare to tease your Yingji now, huh? How could I? How would I dare? Watching the two children banter, Qin Yuqi smiled slightly, and her depressed mood seemed to ease a lot. Qin, Let's go. Qin Yuqi took Qin Chen and disappeared into the crowd. Leaving the Qin family, Qin Yuqi didn't feel much sadness. Apart from worrying about Qin Chen's suffering, she felt more relieved. The most urgent task for the two of them was to find a place to live. Qin Yuqi and Qin Chen arrived at the property exchange, the place where houses were bought and sold throughout the royal capital. Seeing the prices of the houses on the notice board, Qin Yuqi couldn't help but gasp. Land in the royal capital was worth its weight in gold, and house prices were outrageously high. The most expensive one cost as much as millions of silver coins and covered several acres. Ordinary ones also cost tens of thousands of silver coins. Finally, Qin Yuqi found some houses costing only a few thousand silver coins at the bottom of the notice board. These houses were located in the west city of the royal capital, where commoners usually lived. Even so, if it weren't for the silver coins Qin Yuanzi had given her, Qin Yuqi would hardly be able to afford even the cheapest one. In the end, after looking at a few houses, Qin Yuqi gritted her teeth and bought a house in West City for 6,000 silver coins. This house wasn't big, but it was clean and had a small courtyard. The two of them cleaned for half a day before they cleaned the house. By this time, it was already dark. "Chenair, it's getting late. Go to bed early," Qin Yuqi said with concern. Qin Chen nodded. Watching Qin Chen close the door to his room, Qin Yuqi looked at the simple furniture around her and sighed slightly in her heart. She was determined to find a job in a few days, otherwise, she wouldn't be able to last long with the remaining silver coins. Especially since Qin Chen still needed to cultivate. As the saying goes, cultivating literature requires poverty, cultivating martial arts requires wealth. Without enough resources, how could Qin Chen catch up with those classmates in Tianxing Academy? Returning to his room, Qin Chen didn't rest, but sat down cross-legged, his eyes shining brightly. "I will definitely make the Qin family repay the humiliation my mother suffered twice over. They will regret driving us out of the Qin family sooner or later." Qin Chen's eyes were sharp as he fell into deep thought. The academy assessment is in a few days. The most urgent task is to improve my strength as soon as possible and strive to awaken my bloodline before the academy exam. Without a bloodline, I will never be able to return to my peak in my previous life, let alone seek revenge. Qin Chen understood the importance of bloodlines even more than any martial artist in the Darky Kingdom. However, what do I need to do to have a greater chance of awakening my bloodline? In Qin Chen's mind, many thoughts constantly emerged, and various methods to improve bloodline awakening appeared in his mind one by one. "I've got it." Soon, Qin Chen thought of a method. Early the next morning, Qin Chen asked his mother for 1,000 silver coins and went to the medicinal herb market to buy some medicinal herbs and concoct several bottles of gray-brown medicinal liquid. This medicinal liquid was called Blood Awakening Liquid, a very popular medicinal liquid in the martial domain, but of course, it didn't exist in the Darky Kingdom. If a martial artist was unable to awaken their bloodline because their natural bloodline was too weak, then the Blood Awakening Liquid could stimulate the bloodline concentration in that martial artist's body and increase their chances of awakening their bloodline. Basically, unless there was no bloodline in the body at all, the bloodline would be 100% awakened after using the Blood Awakening Liquid. In the following days, Qin Chen cultivated diligently while taking the Blood Awakening Liquid every day. During this time, Qin Ying came twice. Qin Chen came out to see her, but otherwise, he was always cultivating diligently. 5 days later, Qin Chen finally drank all of the Blood Awakening Liquid. Qin Chen, who had been cultivating with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes, shooting out a sharp light. "It's time to awaken the bloodline in my body." The Bloodline Holy Ground was a very magnificent building in the royal capital of the Darky Kingdom, not inferior to the weapon hall in the slightest. In terms of grandeur, it even surpassed it. When Qin Chen arrived at the Bloodline Holy Ground, it was already noon. The entrance to the Bloodline Holy Ground was bustling with people, and pedestrians were constantly moving, making it very lively. Among them, the vast majority were martial artists wearing armor and exuding an extraordinary aura. Secondly, there were some teenagers about the same age as Qin Chen, led by their parents, entering the Bloodline Holy Ground. Qin Chen knew that these were all teenagers who had come to the bloodline holy ground to awaken their bloodlines. As the most prestigious academy in the Darky Kingdom, Tianxing Academy invited bloodline masters from the bloodline holy ground every year to go to the academy and awaken the bloodlines of the students. However, ordinary teenagers in the royal capital who had not been admitted to Tianxing Academy could only come to the bloodline holy ground to awaken their bloodlines. Although the price of asking a bloodline master to awaken the bloodline once was extremely expensive, those commoner families would not save any money on their children's future, even if it meant going bankrupt. Looking at the familiar bloodline holy ground logo, Qin Chen felt a myriad of emotions in his heart. Finally, his eyes gradually became firm and he gently stepped into the bloodline holy ground. Inside the bloodline holy land, people bustled about. Qin Chen's gaze swept lightly, and he saw two lines forming in the hall of the bloodline holy land. One of the lines was for adult martial artists who generally came to the bloodline holy land to upgrade or repair their bloodlines. After a bloodline awakens, it will improve as the martial artist's strength increases. In addition, bloodline masters can also use external materials to enhance a martial artist's bloodline power and improve their strength. The other line was filled with young people led by their parents, clearly waiting for the bloodline masters of the bloodline holy land to perform awakening rituals. Young sir, are you here to awaken your bloodline? Where are your parents? Didn't they come with you? A melodious voice suddenly rang in Qin Chen's ear, accompanied by a refreshing fragrance. A young woman in a white dress, with a graceful figure, smiled and spoke to Qin Chen. Lin Xinru was a server at the bloodline holy land. Seeing Qin Chen enter and constantly looking around, she couldn't help but step forward to inquire. Young sir. Qin Chen touched his nose. This title was quite special. In his previous life, when he went to the bloodline holy land headquarters in the martial domain, which server wasn't respectful to him. Hearing such a title suddenly gave him a novel feeling. Lin Xinru smiled sweetly. You're even younger than my younger brother. If I don't call you young sir, should I call you little brother? Lin Xinru's face was full of smiles. The server's job was dull and boring. It was rare to see a young man without his parents, so Lin Xinru was a bit more casual and teasing. All right then, arrange a private bloodline room for me, Qin Chen said faintly, his eyes still wandering around the hall. Young sir, if you want to awaken your bloodline, you only need to register and then wait in line over there. Master Chen Fan of the Holy Land is presiding over the bloodline awakenings today. When it's your turn, you can just follow the person in front of you. There's no need to arrange a private bloodline room. Qin Chen's adult-like tone made Lin Xinru want to laugh. I'm not here to have someone awaken my bloodline, but for something else. You just need to arrange a bloodline room for me. Qin Chen said faintly, knowing that she had misunderstood his intentions. Lin Xinru was stunned and looked at Qin Chen. The bloodline room was a room used by bloodline masters to perform awakening ceremonies. It contained some equipment that only bloodline masters could use. Could this young man be thinking of awakening his own bloodline? Sir, if you want to awaken your bloodline, it's best to have a bloodline master do it for you. The bloodline awakening ceremony is very complex, and carelessness can cause significant damage to your own bloodline, even life-threatening. If you want to study the awakening ceremony, it's best to do it with your mentor. Lin Xinru's expression turned serious. In the history of the bloodline holy land, such things had happened before. A bloodline master apprentice privately awakened someone's bloodline, resulting in irreparable damage to the person, almost causing the young man's death. In the end, the bloodline master apprentice was immediately expelled and severely sanctioned by the Holy Land. Don't worry, I just want to study the bloodline awakening ceremony, there won't be any danger. You don't need to worry about anything else. Qin Chen waved his hand, his tone indifferent, releasing an unquestionable meaning. Lin Xinru's heart trembled, and her previous casualness disappeared. Those who came to the bloodline holy land were usually seeking help, and the demeanor was often very respectful and humble. However, Qin Chen's tone made her feel unable to refuse. In her heart, she had already labeled Qin Chen as a bloodline master apprentice. In that case, please follow me. Lin Xinru led Qin Chen to the front desk to register. The rental fee for the bloodline room is 500 silver coins per hour. Please sign here. Here are 500 silver coins. Qin Chen took out 500 silver coins and signed his name, but he smiled bitterly in his heart. The rental fee was really expensive. The fee for one awakening was 100 silver coins, but renting a bloodline room was 5 times more expensive. It seemed that after the academy entrance exam, he would have to find a way to get some money. At this time, in the bloodline room area of the bloodline Holy Land. In a delicate room, a middle-aged executive in a robe pointed to the instruments in the bloodline room and said to a manager-like person beside him in a deep voice, "Manager Lu, this batch of bloodline instruments was personally requested by the president from the upper-level bloodline Holy Land. They are the most advanced bloodline instruments on the market. It is said that the bloodline masters of the martial domain also use these bloodline instruments. However, this set of instruments is very complicated to use. Currently, even the president is still researching and exploring them. In our branch, no one except the president is allowed to use the instruments in this bloodline room, including other bloodline masters. You are the manager in charge of the bloodline room. If any problems occur, I will hold you accountable. Do you understand?" "Yes, Executive Lee, don't worry. I will immediately give the order to ensure that not even a mosquito can fly in." Manager Lu patted his chest and said. "Well, then I can rest assured. The president still has some matters to attend to, so I will go over first." After Executive Lee left, Manager Lu looked at the many instruments in the room with admiration. "So this is what the most advanced bloodline instruments on the market look like. TSK. It is said that this set of instruments can even detect bloodline concentrations as low as 1,000th. That's really awesome. Hee. Our branch actually has such a treasure." Just as Manager Lu's eyes were shining and he was marveling, an anxious voice suddenly came from outside. "Manager Lu, is Manager Lu there?" "I'm here. What's the matter?" Manager Lu walked out of the bloodline room and saw that it was the assistant of Holy Land Master Chen Fan. He frowned, knowing that something must have happened. "Manager Lu, the bloodline instrument suddenly malfunctioned while Master Chen Fan was performing an awakening. Please go and take a look quickly." "What? That happened?" Manager Lu was shocked. Master Chen Fan was the master presiding over the awakening ceremony today. All the young people who came to the Holy Land to awaken their bloodlines today had their awakening ceremonies performed by him. If something went wrong, it would definitely be a major event and might even affect the reputation of the bloodline Holy Land. "Hurry up and take me there." Alarmed, Manager Lu couldn't care about much and hurriedly followed the other party to Chen Fan's bloodline room, forgetting the matter that Executive Lee had just instructed. Not long after Manager Lu left, Lin Xinru led Qin Chen into the bloodline room area. "This is where our bloodline Holy Land's bloodline rooms are located. Each room here has bloodline awakening instruments. You can use this room." Lin Xinru casually opened a bloodline room and said to Qin Chen. "Okay." Qin Chen nodded and was about to enter when he suddenly glanced at the room next door and paused slightly. "This is also the bloodline chamber of your bloodline sacred ground." Qin Chen was pointing to the bloodline chamber where Steward Lu had just been. Lin Xinru looked suspiciously at the bloodline chamber Qin Chen was pointing to, and asked doubtfully, "It should be, right? Every room in this area is a bloodline chamber of the sacred ground, but this room has always been empty before, so it might be newly opened. Then I'll use this bloodline chamber." Qin Chen's eyes flashed, and without waiting for Lin Xinru to say anything more, he had already walked into the room and closed the door of the bloodline chamber. Lin Xinru opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but was directly blocked by the closed door, and turned away helplessly. Looking at the brand new equipment in front of him, Qin Chen was secretly excited, never expecting that the bloodline sacred ground of the Great Qi Kingdom would actually have such a new type of bloodline instrument. It was truly heaven helping me. The bloodline instrument in the room he had just been in was a very old version, which had already been eliminated by the martial domain 300 years ago, while the bloodline instrument in this room was a type that was relatively popular in the martial domain at that time. This set of equipment not only had higher accuracy, but also had lower requirements for bloodline masters. Qin Chen was originally worried that his cultivation was too low to awaken his own bloodline, but now that he saw this set of equipment, he was completely relieved. Pa. After casually checking the bloodline instrument and finding that there were no problems, Qin Chen skillfully turned on the many switches on the bloodline instrument. A buzzing sound rang out, and the bloodline instrument quickly lit up, with a band of 7-colored light flowing through the entire bloodline instrument, like neon. Qin Chen sat cross-legged on the bloodline instrument, and his heart quickly calmed down. Awakening one's own bloodline is like a doctor performing surgery on himself. The difficulty is extremely high. It can be called a taboo in the bloodline master world. Ordinary bloodline masters simply dare not do such a thing, but for Qin Chen, this is nothing at all. He closed his eyes, and a wisp of subtle true energy slowly penetrated into a piece of white crystal in front of him. The white crystal quickly lit up, and a series of obscure and strange patterns emerged. Along with the rise of the light, a mysterious force enveloped Qin Chen, like the bright moonlight, wrapping Qin Chen in it. Under the light, Qin Chen felt his body instantly become transparent. The 12 meridians in his body were like 12 crystals, flowing with surging true energy. Immediately afterwards, the bloodline veins in his body emerged, and the power in the blood also slowly emerged. Qin Chen's eyes were like lightning as he sensed the power of his own bloodline. Upon this sensing, Qin Chen's expression suddenly changed. Because he didn't sense the slightest bloodline power in his body. How is this possible? In the previous few days, he had continuously taken awakening bloodline elixir, so even the thinnest bloodline would become incomparably active, especially under this set of bloodline instruments. Even a bloodline concentration of 1 in 10,000 would be sensed. But now, he couldn't sense the slightest bloodline in his body. Qin Chen's heart instantly sank, as if falling into an ice cellar, his whole body feeling cold, and his hands and feet icy. This shows that there is no trace of bloodline in his body at all. No wonder he couldn't awaken it several times before. This is impossible. The inheritance of bloodline comes from both parents. In ancient times, every human body possessed a bloodline. Even if the inheritance of bloodline becomes increasingly thin with the passage of time, it is impossible for there to be a situation where there is no bloodline at all. Qin Chen murmured to himself, unable to believe it. There are many martial artists in the Tianwu Continent who cannot awaken their bloodlines, but this is not because their bodies do not contain bloodlines, but because the concentration of bloodlines is too thin, leading to their inability to awaken. But someone like me, who can't sense any bloodline in his body, this. Qin Chen felt like he was standing naked in the ice and snow, with a basin of cold water poured over him from head to toe, his heart feeling cold. Bloodline is extremely important for a martial artist. A martial artist without a bloodline is like a tiger that has lost its claws and teeth. No matter how fierce it is, it cannot become the king of the forest. Reborn, Qin Chen carried too many things. If he had no bloodline, how could he return to his peak and take revenge on Fang Xiaoyu and Shangguan Xie, that pair of despicable people? In Qin Chen's heart, even the thinnest bloodline, he had a way to increase its concentration and awaken it, but to have no bloodline at all, this. Qin Chen's heart was cold. Was heaven so merciless? Was he, who had been reborn, going to watch Shangguan Xie and Fang Xiaoyu, that pair of despicable people, live freely? No. Qin Chen roared in his heart. I don't believe it. I don't believe that I won't have any bloodline at all. Qin Chen calmed down and frantically circulated the 9-star Divine Emperor art. The surging true energy agitated in his body, urging the blood throughout his body to boil. Blood restriction technique. A strange blood-colored pattern suddenly emerged in his body, and the power in the blood became stronger and stronger. He continuously used true energy to control the operation of the bloodline instrument. The entire bloodline instrument flashed with 7 colors, and the bloodline detection function was maximized. However, no matter what method Qin Chen used, he still couldn't feel the slightest bloodline power. Just when his heart was almost desperate. Suddenly. When the 9-star Divine Emperor art was circulated to the extreme. Buzz. A faint light flashed across Qin Chen's bloodline. Qin Chen's heart suddenly jumped. This is. That trace of blue light was extremely subtle, but it was definitely a kind of bloodline power. Qin Chen grabbed the last straw like a drowning man, desperately circulating his true energy, wanting to capture that trace of blue power. At this moment, he gritted his teeth, concentrating all his attention, and his spirit, energy, and soul were instantly focused on one point. A scene that Qin Chen didn't expect happened. The color of the bloodline in front of him suddenly changed. He seemed to feel some kind of strange call, and his heart suddenly calmed down, entering a strange realm. His heart seemed to have a wisp of breeze blowing through, transparent and clear, without a trace of dust. At the same time, the ancient small sword in Qin Chen's mind suddenly emerged, and the ancient and sharp blade emitted a strange buzzing sound. Qin Chen's eyes instantly turned a brilliant blue, as if he was in an ocean of thunder. Boom! A terrifying aura, centered on him, instantly soared into the sky, pierced through the sky above the great Qi kingdom's capital, and went straight into the clouds. This power shuttled between reality and illusion, and no one in the entire capital could feel it. However, at the moment when this power rushed into the sky, rumble! The entire sky above the Great Qi Kingdom was filled with shocking thunder, and all the powerhouses of the Great Qi Kingdom were shocked by this power, looking at the sky above their heads in horror. In their lifetime, they had never seen such a vast lightning, densely packed and interwoven like a spider web. In a brief moment, the entire sky above the Great Qi Kingdom turned into an ocean of thunder, releasing a destructive doomsday aura. A terrifying pressure descended from the sky, like the thunder god's wrath, turning the world into an ocean of lightning. But what was most alarming was that this pressure not only covered the capital of the Great Qi Kingdom, but even the entire Northwest 5 nations. What's going on? What exactly is going on? What terrifying power? What is this? Could it be some martial emperor powerhouse passing by my Great Qi Kingdom? Thunder destroys the world. Which powerhouse is it, sweeping away armies and ruling the world? From the bloodline Holy Land branch to the royal city, and then to the entire Great Qi Kingdom, and even the entire Northwest 5 nations, all were plunged into panic. All the powerhouses in the region raised their heads, looking at the terrifying phenomenon in the sky. As for the powerhouses in the Great Qi Kingdom's capital, they felt it even more clearly. Under this terrifying power, the higher one's cultivation, the more suppressed they were, almost prostrating on the ground, unable to move. Fortunately, this power came quickly and went quickly, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Everyone felt a lightness on their bodies and breathed a long sigh of relief. The lightning all over the sky retreated like a tide, instantly disappearing without a trace, restoring the clear and bright world. In the bloodline chamber, Qin Chen suddenly opened his eyes, also stunned by the sudden power. At this moment, within his bloodline, a deep blue lightning bolt shuttled and roamed, like a small blue snake, agile and mysterious. The terrifying pressure just now was actually released by my bloodline power. What kind of bloodline is this? In his previous life, Qin Chen had roamed the martial domain and seen countless bloodlines, but he had never seen a bloodline awakening that would cause such a terrifying phenomenon in the world. Even the legendary 9th grade bloodline could not release such pressure. But when Qin Chen focused his mind on the lightning in his body, he found that this lightning power was extremely weak, only the weakest 1st grade bloodline. What exactly is going on? Previously, there was clearly nothing in my bloodline, but now this lightning bloodline has appeared out of thin air. Moreover, the terrifying aura just now was clearly emitted by this lightning power in my body. Why is it just a 1st grade bloodline when it calms down? Bloodline power can only be purified, but cannot be created out of thin air. Even those old fellows in the bloodline Holy Land of the martial domain probably can't explain this phenomenon of creating something from nothing, right? The strange scene just now left Qin Chen, the 8th order bloodline grandmaster of his previous life, in confusion. He vaguely felt that this lightning bloodline in his body, the ancient small sword in his mind, and the 9-star divine emperor art, had a mysterious connection. Perhaps his rebirth 300 years later was also inextricably linked to them. But no matter what, he had finally awakened his bloodline. Although this bloodline only seemed to be a 1st grade bloodline in terms of aura, after experiencing everything just now, Qin Chen didn't think that this lightning power was really just a weak 1st grade bloodline. Lightning bloodline. It really makes me look forward to it. A hint of a smile appeared on the corner of Qin Chen's mouth. Next, he sat cross-legged on the bloodline instrument, using the special detection ability of the bloodline instrument to sense the lightning bloodline in his body. Buzz. The strange bloodline power containing lightning power was clearly presented in Qin Chen's perception. With a slight urging, crackling, Qin Chen's body was instantly covered with a layer of deep blue lightning light net, electric arcs intertwined, making a crackling sound. Condense. Suddenly, Qin Chen opened his eyes, and the terrifying lightning instantly gathered on his right hand, forming a lightning light net on the surface of his fist, and he punched it out. Boom. The powerful fist aura slammed onto the ground, instantly exploding, as if igniting a powder keg, releasing a terrifying shock wave. Huh. This power. Although the aura of this lightning bloodline was only at the first grade, its power was almost no weaker than some third-grade bloodlines. Strange. Bizarre. Qin Chen carefully studied it for a while and found that this lightning bloodline, whether in terms of attribute or power, was equivalent to the level of a third-grade bloodline. It was clearly a first-grade bloodline, but its power was equivalent to a third-grade bloodline. Qin Chen's attainments in bloodlines in his previous life were amazing, and it was the first time he had seen such a special bloodline. As first-grade bloodlines, the power naturally varied. But most first-grade bloodlines were very close in power to each other. Even some special first-grade bloodlines could only barely reach the power of second-grade bloodlines at most. Qin Chen had never encountered a special bloodline like the lightning bloodline, which was comparable to a third-grade bloodline when it was at the first grade. Interesting. Really interesting. The grade of a bloodline is not immutable. If some special methods are used to raise this lightning bloodline to a higher level, what kind of performance will its power have? Qin Chen was looking forward to it. Knock knock knock. Just as Qin Chen was about to do some more experiments, there was a sudden knock on the door. Young master, an hour has passed. Lin Shiru's moving voice came from outside the door. Qin Chen was stunned, and then he realized that more than an hour had passed without him knowing it. Opening the door, Lin Qiro was standing at the door with an apologetic expression. I'm really sorry, but your time is up. I don't know if you are going to renew your fee, or... I happen to have some temporary matters. I'll come again next time. In order not to expose his embarrassment of being short of money, Qin Chen had to find a reason to prevaricate. He was depressed in his heart. I will also be troubled by a mere 500 silver coins. It seems that I have to find a way to get some money. However, now that the bloodline has been awakened, Qin Chen is very satisfied with this trip to the bloodline Holy Land. Okay, please come to the front desk with me to register. Lin Qiro said with a smile. Just as Lin Qiro and Qin Chen were talking. Bloodline area. Steward Lu paced, humming a ditty, and walked over leisurely in a good mood. Earlier, he had rushed to Master Chen Fan's bloodline chamber, and by blindly bumping into it, he had actually repaired the malfunctioning bloodline instrument, preventing an accident, and his heart was greatly proud. Thinking of the strange look Master Chen Fan gave him before, Steward Lu's heart was filled with pride. Hee. Although I am not a bloodline master, and I entered the bloodline Holy Land through the back door, I am also an indispensable talent in the bloodline Holy Land. Repairing the bloodline instrument is something that many bloodline masters can't do. I, Lu Tong, actually did it. Hee. Let's see which of those bloodline masters in the Holy Land dares to underestimate me in the future. Just as he was feeling happy, Steward Lu suddenly saw the half-open bloodline chamber and Lin Qiro standing at the door. His heart suddenly trembled, and the original joy disappeared in an instant, and he only felt that his scalp was about to explode. Could someone have entered the bloodline chamber that Executive Li had instructed? Steward Lu exclaimed in shock. His heart fell into an ice cave, and he rushed into the bloodline chamber like crazy. Then, he saw the bloodline instrument with all the lights on, and Qin Chen standing inside. The anger in his chest, like a volcanic eruption, instantly filled his chest. You. What are you doing here? Who let you in? How dare you? This is outrageous. Utterly outrageous. An enraged roar echoed through the entire bloodline chamber. A black blur flashed, and with a smack asterisk, Lin Shinru didn't even have time to react before she was sent flying, crashing heavily to the ground. Manager Lu's face was twisted, like a furious beast. His eyes were bloodshot, and his right index finger pointed accusingly at Lin Shinru, who was lying on the ground. He roared, "Do you know what this place is? You're just a small-time attendant. Who gave you the gall to bring people in here? You're courting death. Lu Tong roared, but his heart was filled with icy dread. It was over. Elder Li had instructed that only the president could use this bloodline chamber, yet someone had broken in. Heavens! This was a monumental dereliction of duty. Lu Tong could almost imagine Elder Li's reaction when he heard the news. He had worked so hard to get into the bloodline holy ground, pulling strings to become a manager, only to have it all ruined by a mere attendant. At that moment, Lu Tong even had the urge to kill Lin Xinru. The fury on his face seemed ready to tear her limb from limb, and his gaze seemed to want to devour her whole. Lin Xinru spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at the enraged Lu Tong, she knew that he was the manager in charge of the bloodline chamber area. The fear in her heart outweighed the pain in her body, and she said in terror, "Manager Lu, the door to this bloodline chamber was open just now. I thought it was a bloodline chamber open to the public by the holy ground, so I didn't think too much about it." Didn't think too much. Do you know whose bloodline chamber this is? This is President's bloodline chamber. You dare bring people in here recklessly. If President finds out, how many lives do you think you have to lose? Lu Tong said, exasperated. When Lin Xinru heard that this bloodline chamber belonged to President, she felt a darkness descend before her eyes and was so frightened that her face turned pale. The president of the bloodline holy ground was the #1 figure in the holy ground, a renowned figure in the Great Qi Kingdom. She had actually allowed someone to enter his bloodline chamber. Lin Xinru was instantly stunned, her mind buzzing, and she didn't know what to say. And you, daring to touch President's bloodline instrument. This is outrageous. Guards, seize these two and wait for Elder Li to come and deal with them. Lu Tong roared. Guards from the bloodline holy ground, who had heard the commotion, rushed over and immediately surrounded Qin Chen and Lin Xinru. By this time, many people had gathered outside the bloodline area, pointing and whispering, wondering what had happened inside. Lu Tong was terrified, but such a major event had occurred, and he didn't dare not report it. He immediately went to find Elder Li, feeling anxious. Qin Chen frowned as he looked at the bloodline holy ground guards surrounding him. The bloodline holy ground was indeed rich and powerful. The guards on both sides were all at the Earth realm, and it was clear that they were seasoned veterans with agile skills. If he dared to leave, Qin Chen was sure that these guards would not hesitate to attack. Although Qin Chen was not afraid of so many Earth realm experts, he didn't want to start a big fight. Don't worry, I won't run. What's everyone so nervous about? Qin Chen said calmly, without the slightest feeling of unease. He went straight to Lin Xinru, helped her up, and asked, "Are you all right?" Lin Xinru's face was swollen, and her eyes were filled with tears. After being helped up by Qin Chen, her eyes were still filled with anxiety, as if the sky had fallen. She cried, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know that this bloodline chamber belonged to President. I've even implicated you. I'll explain it to Manager Lu later. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's all my fault. Don't worry, nothing will happen." Qin Chen gently wiped the tears from Lin Xinru's cheeks. His gentle voice seemed to possess magic, instantly reducing the fear in Lin Xinru's heart. Feeling the strong masculine aura emanating from Qin Chen, Lin Xinru's fair cheeks flushed slightly. She actually forgot her fear and instead felt her face burning. She didn't dare to look Qin Chen in the eye. The guards on the side had cold eyes and sneered. This kid actually had the leisure to flirt with a young girl at this time. He really didn't know how to write the word, death. However, he was quite courageous, and had guts. Elder Li, it's these two who touched President's bloodline chamber. At this moment, Manager Lu's hurried voice came. Elder Li walked over with a livid face, striding quickly. When the guards saw this, they stood up straight and saluted. Elder Li was the president's right-hand man and held a prominent position in the bloodline holy ground. How could they dare to neglect him? However, Li Wenyu didn't even look at them. He couldn't wait to look into the bloodline chamber. When he saw the bloodline instrument in the process of being activated, a cold chill instantly emanated from his body. The temperature in the entire bloodline chamber area seemed to drop by dozens of degrees out of thin air. Everyone felt a bone-chilling cold. Li Wenyu turned around and stared at Lu Tong with a fierce gaze that could almost kill, and said in a cold voice, "Lu Tong, is this the guarantee you gave me?" Elder Li, this is an accident, definitely an accident. I don't want to hear explanations. President just said that he's coming down. You can explain it to him later. What? President is coming over. Thump. Lu Tong's legs went weak, and he knelt directly on the ground, grabbing Li Wenyu's sleeve and wailing, Elder Li, Master Li, please save me. Save me. HMPH. Save you. Li Wenyu kicked him to the ground and said in a cold voice, how did you guarantee to me just now? How long has it been, and you've already allowed people to damage the bloodline instrument that President painstakingly obtained? Do you know how much effort President spent on this bloodline instrument and how many times he ran to the upper bloodline holy ground? I didn't expect that only a few days after bringing it back, you would allow people to damage it. HMPH. I think you should pray for your own good. Elder Li, it really wasn't my fault. Just now, Master Chen Fan's bloodline instrument had a problem, and I went to deal with it. It was this attendant who brought people in here recklessly. Yes, it's all their fault. Lu Tong seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and pushed all the responsibility onto Lin Xinru and Qin Chen. HMPH. Li Wenyu glanced at Qin Chen and the others with a cold and indifferent gaze. In his opinion, no matter who was at fault, the president's bloodline instrument was now damaged, and none of these people would be able to get away with it. Listening to their conversation, Qin Chen understood that the other party was furious because they had moved this bloodline chamber without permission. He said indifferently, are you the elder here? When we came over, the door to this bloodline chamber was open. Who knew that we couldn't enter? If there's a mistake, then it's also a problem with your bloodline holy ground. We are also victims in this matter. It has nothing to do with us. Can we leave now? After saying that, Qin Chen was about to walk out. You destroyed the guild leader's bloodline instrument, and you still want to leave. There's no way that's happening. Lu Tong leaped up, blocking Qin Chen's path, his face contorted as he pointed at Qin Chen, spittle flying from his mouth, almost landing on Qin Chen. Qin Chen subtly shifted his feet, his gaze turning cold, and he said in a deep voice, first, I only borrowed the bloodline instrument, I didn't destroy it. Second, even if it was destroyed, that's a problem for your bloodline sacred ground. Don't tell me you want to force the responsibility onto me. A sharp glint suddenly erupted in Qin Chen's eyes, icy and carrying a trace of indifference to all living things, causing Lu Tong to tremble all over, a chilling coldness shooting straight to his brain, a deep sense of fear rising from within. He took 2 steps back in alarm, his voice trembling as he said, what do you want to do? This is the bloodline sacred ground. His gaze darted to the guards beside him, and Lu Tong suddenly sobered up, instantly understanding his situation. His retreating steps immediately stopped, and he felt his old face flush red, burning hot, wishing he could find a crack in the ground to disappear into. Oh heavens, this was simply too embarrassing. He, a dignified manager of the bloodline sacred ground, was actually frightened out of his wits by a teenager. If word got out, he could forget about staying in the bloodline sacred ground in the future. Li Wenyu, on the side, looked surprised, also startled by the aura released by Qin Chen. The other party was clearly just a teenager, but the aura he had displayed earlier gave him a feeling that he couldn't underestimate him, and he secretly took note of it. Li Wenyu, what exactly happened in the awakening room? Just then, a steady voice suddenly came from outside the awakening area. An old man wearing a white robe with a blood-colored pattern on his chest, the edges of the pattern embroidered with a silver border, walked through the crowd and approached. His steps were steady, and the aura on his body was not released, but he exuded an unspeakable majesty, his eyes deep, like a bottomless cold pool, making people afraid to look directly at him. Heavens, it's guild leader Dongfang, king of the bloodline sacred ground. What exactly happened inside that even alarmed the guild leader of the bloodline sacred ground? My God, is the bloodline sacred ground having an earthquake? The many martial artists gathered outside the awakening area were all stunned, each one uttering thunderous exclamations. The moment Dongfang King passed by, each of them looked devout, their eyes filled with respect, as if gazing at their idol. Dongfang King, the guild leader of the bloodline sacred ground of the Great Qi State, one of the most powerful figures in the Great Qi State. If he stamped his foot, the entire royal capital would tremble 3 times. Normally, it would be almost as difficult as ascending to heaven for people to see him once. They never expected to see him in the awakening area today, which showed that something major must have happened in the bloodline sacred ground. For a time, many people were craning their necks, desperately trying to look inside, but they couldn't see anything clearly. 4th Order Bloodline Xuan Master. Qin Chen's gaze landed on the badge on Dongfang King's chest, his eyes narrowing slightly. Bloodline masters generally use blood patterns to represent their identity and rank. 1 blood pattern represents 1st Order, 2 represents 2nd Order, 3 represents 3rd Order, and after reaching 4th Order, the blood pattern returns to 1, but a silver border is added to the edge of the blood pattern. By analogy, after 7th Order, the edge of the blood pattern will be inlaid with a gold border. The other party now had a blood pattern with a silver border on his chest, indicating that he was a 4th Order profound level bloodline master. Li Wenyu, what exactly happened in the awakening room? You even made me come here in person. Dongfang King had previously been shocked by the awakening of Qin Chen's thunder bloodline, and was lost in thought in shock, but was interrupted and told that there was a problem in the awakening room, so he had to rush over as soon as possible, naturally feeling a little displeased. Although Li Wenyu looked arrogant in front of Lu Tong, when he saw Dongfang King, his attitude was immediately as respectful as a follower, cautiously saying, "Guild leader, Lu Tong was negligent and allowed a guest of the sacred ground into your newly built bloodline room." What? Dongfang King's displeased expression suddenly turned to shock, interrupting Li Wenyu's words, and he asked in surprise, "Which bloodline room are you talking about?" Li Wenyu's heart skipped a beat, and he said nervously, "It's the bloodline room where you recently placed the latest bloodline instrument that you requested from the upper bloodline sacred ground." Dongfang King's calm expression instantly disappeared, and the anger in his eyes gathered like a volcano about to erupt. Everyone felt a chill sweeping through the entire bloodline area like a storm, and they trembled in fear, each one shivering. "Damn it! Didn't I tell you 1,000 times that no one should be allowed to enter this bloodline room? You can't even do this little thing well. What are you all doing? If there's the slightest problem with that batch of bloodline instruments, none of you should stay in the bloodline sacred ground. Pack your bags and leave." Dongfang King's furious roar echoed in the hall, the loud sound making everyone's minds buzz and almost faint. Immediately afterwards, Dongfang King turned into a gust of wind and rushed into the bloodline room next to him. Li Wenyu and the others all followed in fear, trembling as they prepared to accept guild leader Dongfang King's furious anger, but they found that after the guild leader went in, there was no movement at all. One by one, they couldn't help but poke their heads into the bloodline room. They saw Dongfang King, who had rushed in anxiously before, standing there like a fool in front of the activated bloodline instrument. The scene was as strange as it could be. The hearts of Li Wenyu and the others slowly sank. In an instant, their hands and feet were cold, and cold sweat rolled down their bodies, their robes soaked with cold sweat. During the process of waiting for Dongfang King just now, what everyone prayed for in their hearts was that there would be no problem with the instrument. As long as the bloodline instrument was still intact, it could still be salvaged, even if they had accidentally let a guest in. But if there was a problem with the bloodline instrument, then... And now, seeing the guild leader's dazed expression, Li Wenyu and the others only had one thought in their minds at this moment, and that was, "It's over." There was definitely a problem with the bloodline instrument. Thump. Lu Tong, who had finally managed to stand firm, felt his eyes go dark and immediately sat down on the ground with his butt, almost fainting. Li Wenyu's mouth twitched on the side, also frightened and trembling, his feet involuntarily taking 2 steps back, his heart ice cold. As for the group of guards, they stayed far away from the door, not even daring to breathe loudly, for fear of becoming the target of the guild leader's rage. Everyone could already imagine the guild leader's furious appearance later. Continuing to stay by his side would be deadly. Sure enough, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, guild leader Dongfang King finally moved. He took 1 step at a time towards the activated bloodline instrument, his feet seeming to weigh 1,000 pounds. At the same time, his hands trembled as he stroked the various buttons on the bloodline instrument, his eyes wide, staring fixedly at the many array patterns lit up on the bloodline instrument. The muscles on his face slowly twisted, and his complexion gradually turned flushed. It's coming, it's coming. Li Wenyu and the others held their breath, already preparing to endure guild leader Dongfang King's earth-shattering rage. Dongfang King's body trembled more and more violently, his eyes widened more and more, his appearance like a volcano brewing to erupt, his anger accumulated to an unparalleled degree. Thinking about it, how much effort did President Dongfang King expend, painstakingly requesting the newest type of bloodline instrument from the upper-level bloodline Holy Land? Before he could even thoroughly study it, it was damaged by a youth due to a staff member's mistake. Such a thing happening to anyone would provoke rage. Such a heartbreaking matter would warrant executing the culprit 1,000 times over. Instantly, the air in the entire bloodline chamber solidified, becoming suffocating. Even breathing felt like a luxury, each second as long as a century. Finally, Dongfang King, who had been suppressing himself to the extreme in everyone's eyes, suddenly jumped up, his booming voice like a thunderclap, echoing throughout the entire bloodline area. Who is it? Who entered and touched my bloodline instrument? Tell me quickly, who was it? Dongfang King instantly arrived in front of Li Wenyu, grabbing his collar tightly, roaring like an angry lion, shaking Li Wenyu's head and spitting saliva all over his face. Li Wenyu was completely stunned by Dongfang King's roar, not knowing what to say for a moment. He wanted to speak, but Dongfang King shook him so violently that he couldn't utter a word, his face turning as red as pig liver. It's him, President. It's this kid who damaged your bloodline instrument. And this attendant, she's the one who let this kid in. They both deserve to die. They dared to sneak into your bloodline chamber while this subordinate was repairing Master Chen Fan's bloodline instrument, damaging your bloodline instrument. Even 10,000 deaths wouldn't be enough to quell this subordinate's hatred. Lu Tong, who had almost fainted, jumped up like a carp, pointing angrily at Qin Chen and Lin Xinru, scolding them harshly, his eyes filled with anger and heartache, as if he were also a victim. It's him. Dongfang King's gaze instantly landed on Qin Chen, a trace of surprise flashing in his eyes. His figure flickered, and he arrived in front of Qin Chen, staring at him intently, and said sternly, "Young man, were you the one who entered the bloodline chamber just now and touched my bloodline instrument?" That's right. Qin Chen looked directly into Dongfang King's eyes, his expression calm and composed, possessing a maturity and stability that a person his age shouldn't have. However, I didn't sneak in. When this attendant brought me here, the door to this room was already open. No one said that this bloodline chamber couldn't be used. HMPH. Boy, you still dare to quibble. Does an open door mean you can enter at will? The bloodline instrument inside is so profound, can a little brat like you understand it? Since you can't understand it, you still dare to randomly touch the bloodline instrument. This is clearly deliberate destruction. I now suspect that you were sent by some ulterior motive to specifically destroy President's bloodline instrument. Lu Tong, in order to protect himself, directly placed a large label on Qin Chen's head. President, I now suspect that this kid is very likely a spy from the Blood Demon sect, Lu Tong said ferociously. Everyone's heart tightened. The Blood Demon sect was a notorious and terrifying force throughout the entire Northern Five Kingdoms. Their methods were cruel, and they committed many evils, but their power was extremely vast, even surpassing the Northern Five Kingdoms. Moreover, the Blood Demon sect had always wanted to interfere in the Northern Five Kingdoms and control them. However, due to the obstruction of forces such as the Bloodline Holy Land and the Instrument Hall, the Blood Demon sect had not succeeded in recent years. If the young man in front of them was really sent by the Blood Demon sect to destroy President's bloodline instrument, then the problem would be serious. Qin Chen smiled coldly, looking at Lu Tong with disdain. Hey, an ordinary citizen of the Great Qi Kingdom like me can actually be called a spy of the Blood Demon sect by you. You really dare to say anything? You. Lu Tong was stung by Qin Chen's gaze, and couldn't help but become furious. He wanted to continue speaking, but before he could finish his words, with a slap sound, he had already received a heavy slap on his face, and the whole person flew out like a broken sack, falling heavily to the ground. The one who made the move was Dongfang King, who had been staring at Qin Chen. Shut up, you embarrassing fellow, get out of the way. This sudden scene stunned everyone. Lu Tong fell to the ground, spitting out blood. President, his mind was muddled, completely not understanding what had happened. Li Wenyu was equally confused. However, what shocked him even more was Dongfang King's next move. He quickly came to Qin Chen, a smile suddenly blooming on his face, like withered flowers blooming again, particularly awkward and ugly. This little brother, may I ask where you are from? I am Dongfang King, the president of the Great Qi Kingdom's bloodline Holy Land. It is truly an honor to meet you today. Dongfang King showed a smile, no longer having even half of his previous furious appearance, being as amiable as possible. A group of people petrified on the spot, each one dumbfounded. Many people couldn't stop roaring in their hearts. What exactly is going on? Why would the always arrogant president be so amiable to a 15 or 16-year-old youth? Li Wenyu and the many guards rubbed their eyes hard, thinking they were hallucinating. Qin Chen frowned and said, "There's no need to talk about my origins. Do you have anything else?" A group of people were speechless. What is the background of this youth? Doesn't he know that the person standing in front of him is President Dongfang King? Even the prince of the Great Qi Kingdom wouldn't dare to speak to President Dongfang King like this, right? Dongfang King touched his head, and said awkwardly, "That, you opened our bloodline Holy Land's bloodline instrument. I wonder if you could turn it off." After he finished speaking, his old face turned slightly red. This set of bloodline instruments was something he had just brought back from the upper-level bloodline Holy Land, and he still didn't know how to operate it. That's simple. Qin Chen stepped into the bloodline chamber. This time, no one dared to stop him, all foolishly watching Qin Chen walk to the bloodline instrument, his hands quickly operating on the bloodline instrument. His phantom-like fingers, like an artwork playing moving music, were full of beauty. A seven-colored stream of light flashed, and the bloodline instrument quickly dimmed. Dongfang King's eyes lit up, staring intently at Qin Chen's technique, his body trembling with excitement. Cough cough. After Qin Chen turned off the bloodline instrument, Dongfang King even rubbed his hands and said, "This little brother, how did you open the bloodline instrument just now? Could you tell me?" His attitude was respectful, like a humble apprentice seeking help, looking at Qin Chen expectantly. How could Qin Chen not see what Dongfang King was thinking, knowing that this person was not familiar with this set of bloodline instruments and wanted to learn some knowledge from him? He didn't hide anything, and said lightly, "I'll only demonstrate it once, watch carefully." As soon as the words fell, Qin Chen's hands suddenly moved, his fingers flashing quickly across the instrument. The entire bloodline instrument suddenly lit up, flashing seven-colored streamers, setting off the entire bloodline chamber incomparably brilliantly. Then Qin Chen said lightly, "You should have understood today's matter, right? Can I leave now?" "Yes, of course you can." Dongfang King calmed the excitement in his heart, turned to Li Wenyu and said, "Li Wenyu, see this little brother off." No, I'll come to see him off myself." Dongfang King personally led Qin Chen out of the bloodline Holy Land. Outside the bloodline sacred ground, Dongfang King, with a face full of smiles, said, "Little brother, I apologize for the spectacle you witnessed at our bloodline sacred ground today. This is a token from our bloodline sacred ground. With this token, little brother can enjoy a 30% discount at any location under our bloodline sacred ground. Moreover, you can access areas that ordinary martial artists cannot. Please accept it." Dongfang King placed a token into Qin Chen's hand. The token's surface was golden, signifying it as a gold guest token of the bloodline sacred ground. Ordinary tokens of the bloodline sacred ground are divided into iron, silver, and gold. Above the gold token, there is an even higher level honorary elder token. The bloodline sacred ground where the Great Qi Kingdom is located is a 4th level bloodline sacred ground, and the gold guest token is already the highest level token they can issue. Qin Chen didn't decline and directly accepted the token, saying, "That attendant won't be punished, right?" "Ha, little brother, you're joking." "Of course not." "That's good." Knowing that Lin Shinru wouldn't be penalized by the bloodline sacred ground because of him, Qin Chen was relieved and turned to leave. After Qin Chen and Dongfang King left, The numerous pedestrians and martial artists who had been watching at the entrance of the bloodline sacred ground immediately erupted into an uproar, discussing animatedly. Who is that young man? He actually made President Dongfang King personally see him off. I don't know. TSK. President Dongfang King personally seeing him off. Even the prince of our great Qi kingdom might not have such treatment, right? Did you all see clearly the token President Dongfang King gave that young man just now? A golden token. It must be the gold guest token of the bloodline sacred ground. I heard that with this gold guest token, you can enjoy a 30% discount on anything you buy at the bloodline sacred ground. Even the top forces in the royal capital might not possess one. Everyone was filled with envy. Bloodline area. At this time, it had calmed down. After Dongfang King returned, he coldly looked at Lu Tong, who was lying on the ground, and coldly snorted, "Expel Lu Tong from the bloodline sacred ground, and from now on, he is not allowed to step into the bloodline sacred ground." Upon hearing this, Lu Tong's eyes went black, and he almost fainted. President Dongfang, it really wasn't my fault. I'm innocent. Please spare me. Lu Tong desperately hugged Dongfang King's calf, crying and shouting. Get lost. Dongfang King's face darkened, and he kicked Lu Tong in the chest, directly sending him flying out. Do you know why I'm punishing you? If you had only let people into this old man's bloodline chamber, that would have been the end of it. But after the problem occurred, not only did you not repent and admit your dereliction of duty, but you also tried to quibble and desperately argue, trying to muddle through. In the end, in order to escape punishment, you even framed others. If I were to allow you to continue staying in my bloodline sacred ground, that would be an insult to my bloodline sacred ground. Lu Tong fell to the ground, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood, crying and shouting, President Dongfang, please give me another chance. HMPH, it's already merciful of this old man not to kill you, and you still want me to spare you. Get lost. If you don't get lost, believe it or not, this old man will chop you up right now. Someone, drag him away. Lu Tong screamed miserably, knowing that there was no room for maneuver. Although he entered the bloodline sacred ground through connections, who was the other party? The president of the bloodline sacred ground, wouldn't dismissing him be just a matter of words? Immediately, two guards stepped forward and dragged Lu Tong out like a dead fish. Dongfang King's gaze fell on Lin Xinru again. Lin Xinru shuddered, her heart was in turmoil, and she felt uneasy. She only felt dizzy and cried, Lord President, this subordinate knows her mistake, and will never dare to do it again. Dongfang King suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. What mistake have you made? This old man even wants to thank you for bringing people to my bloodline chamber. I ask you, what is the name of that young man just now? What is his identity? Looking at Dongfang King, whose style had changed, Lin Xinru's mind went blank. I don't know. I only know that his name is Qin Chen. Qin Chen. Dongfang King seemed thoughtful, and then nodded. You did well today. Go to the sacred ground and receive an extra month's salary. Go back and rest for 2 days. Yes. Lin Xinru was dizzy and walked out foolishly, and didn't understand what had happened until she left the bloodline area. Li Wenyu, help me investigate. What is the background of that Qin Chen? Dongfang King suddenly said. Yes. Li Wenyu seemed to understand something and asked doubtfully, President, is that young man perhaps of great importance? He had followed Dongfang King for so many years and had never seen a young man who could make the president value him so much. Background. Didn't you see it just now? Dongfang King glanced at him, walked into the bloodline chamber, and stared at the bloodline instrument in front of him, a trace of shock involuntarily appearing in his eyes. This subordinate is dull. Dongfang King pointed to the bloodline instrument in front of him and said, this latest type of bloodline instrument is divided into 6 states and 18 levels. Each time a level is increased, an additional array pattern will light up, and the higher the level, the stronger the intensity of the bloodline instrument's detection. Now, how many array patterns do you see lit up on this bloodline instrument? 1, 2, 3. Li Wenyu concentrated on counting, and was suddenly shocked, exclaiming, 18, how is this possible? That's right, it is 18. Dongfang King's gaze was deep, and he said in a deep voice, "This bloodline instrument was painstakingly retrieved by this old man from the upper-level bloodline sacred ground not long ago. It is extremely rare in the entire northern 5 nations, and as for the Great Qi Kingdom, there is only this one. Even this old man only currently masters the activation method for the first 12 levels, but that young man actually directly activated this bloodline instrument to the highest power of 18 levels. What do you say is going on?" Li Wenyu was horrified and said, "President, do you mean that there is a powerful bloodline master behind this young man?" "Very likely, even if not, this child is definitely not simple." Dongfang King squinted his eyes, stroked his beard, and said thoughtfully, "There is actually such an interesting young man in our royal capital, haha, this is really interesting." When Qin Chen returned home, he found that his mother was not there, and he sighed slightly in his heart. "These days, my mother has been leaving early and returning late every day. She must be rushing around to earn money. After the academy exam, I have to find a way to earn some money, and I must not let my mother continue to work so hard." He made up his mind, and then returned to his room and continued to cultivate. In the simple room, Qin Chen sat cross-legged. A faint blood-colored halo emerged from his body, and a faint layer of blood-colored runes floated beneath him, wrapping him in it. In his previous life as an 8th-level bloodline emperor, Qin Chen naturally knew many bloodline cultivation techniques. At this moment, he was cultivating a bloodline cultivation technique from his previous life in the martial domain that was extremely heaven-defying. After the bloodline awakens, there needs to be a consolidation process, and what Qin Chen is doing is consolidating his bloodline. Secondly, a martial artist's control over their bloodline requires constant attempts to be able to control it as desired and stimulate it. Qin Chen is now increasing his control over his bloodline. What's going on? The power of my bloodline has actually increased slightly compared to before. An hour later, Qin Chen was shocked to discover that the trace of lightning power in his body had actually increased slightly. Although this increase was extremely subtle, ordinary martial artists would not pay attention to it at all, but he immediately discovered it. Impossible. Ordinarily, if a martial artist wants to enhance their bloodline, they can only do so by absorbing the bloodline power and blood crystals from blood beasts, or through the enhancement of a bloodline master. But my thunder bloodline. A bloodline that can grow on its own. Qin Chen was shocked by his discovery. Bloodlines under heaven, besides being ranked from 1 to 9, are also divided into 3 levels: mortal, profound, and king. This is because even the most trash bloodline can be enhanced through a bloodline master or by absorbing bloodline power. However, different bloodline levels have different potential for growth. Mortal level bloodlines refer to ordinary bloodlines that can only grow to a maximum of rank 3. These bloodlines can only be enhanced to rank 3 at most and are the most ordinary. Profound level bloodlines are those that can be enhanced to a maximum of rank 6. As for king level, they are bloodlines that can grow to rank 9. Legend has it that above king level bloodlines, there is also a god level bloodline. This type of bloodline doesn't need to absorb bloodline power and blood crystals from blood beasts. Instead, its rank increases automatically with the martial artist's cultivation level. It's just that this kind of bloodline has always existed only in legends. Qin Chen had only heard of it in his previous life and had never seen it. Could my thunder bloodline be the legendary god-level bloodline? Qin Chen felt his whole body heating up, and his palms were sweating. Although he didn't know how terrifying a god-level bloodline truly was, he could learn from the records that the growth potential and power of a god-level bloodline were far above that of a king-level bloodline. Throughout history, geniuses with god-level bloodlines, as long as they didn't die prematurely, ultimately achieved extremely astonishing accomplishments, becoming peak experts on the continent. Regardless of whether it's a god-level bloodline or not, the immediate priority is to improve my cultivation. I've fallen too far behind before, and time waits for no one. I must reach the late human realm before the academy entrance examination. Qin Chen let out a long breath, his eyes gleaming. In the following days, he remained indoors, entering a closed-door cultivation. The 9-star God Emperor art circulated within his body, completing cycle after cycle. With each cycle, the true energy in Qin Chen's 12 meridians would increase slightly. At this time, the power of the 9-star god emperor art was evident. Ordinary cultivation techniques, after running for dozens of cycles, would cause the human body's meridians to be unable to withstand the impact of true energy, resulting in minor damage. Martial artists often need to rest for a period of time before they can continue cultivating. However, the 9-star god emperor art, while cultivating, would nourish and repair the meridians, meaning that cultivation could continue indefinitely without causing damage to the meridians. With repeated cultivation, the true energy in Qin Chen's body became increasingly dense. Finally, on the day before the academy entrance examination was about to arrive. Boom! A muffled sound suddenly came from Qin Chen's dantian, and his entire body trembled slightly. Breakthrough to the late human realm. The capacity of his chi pool immediately expanded tenfold. The original chi pool, the size of a washbasin, instantly became a meter square, containing a large amount of pure true energy, like a full lake, surging and turbulent. I've finally broken through to the late human realm. The next goal is the Earth realm. I'll strive to break through to the Earth realm within a month, otherwise, this cultivation speed is too slow. If other martial artists heard Qin Chen's thoughts, they would definitely be so frustrated that they would vomit blood. Breaking through from the initial human realm to the late human realm in a month is almost comparable to a year of cultivation for some talented young people, yet he still thinks it's slow. It's simply outrageous. In any case, now that I've reached the late human realm, those who want to see me make a fool of myself at the academy entrance examination are probably going to be disappointed. Qin Chen smiled coldly, Zhao Feng's sinister expression appearing in his mind. I wonder what level my strength has reached now. Qin Chen stood up and came to the courtyard. It was noon, and no one was at home. Qin Yuqi usually didn't come back at noon. Qin Chen stared at a half-person high, dark, stubborn rock in the courtyard in front of him. His footsteps shifted slightly, and his legs suddenly exerted force. With a whoosh, he rushed out. Crack! The floor tiles where Qin Chen had been standing immediately burst open, spreading like a spider web. His whole person was like a bolt of lightning, instantly arriving in front of the stubborn rock. He used the strength of his legs to drive his waist, then used his waist to drive his back, then his shoulders, and finally, he concentrated his strength on his right fist, punching the stubborn rock. Boom! With a shocking loud noise, the entire stubborn rock was penetrated by the fist force and instantly shattered into fist-sized pieces of gravel, bursting and scattering all over the ground. The power of this punch should be around 20 horsepower. Qin Chen nodded in satisfaction. Ordinary martial artists in the initial human realm have the power of 1 horse, martial artists in the middle human realm have the power of 5 horses, and martial artists in the late human realm have the power of 10 horses. Qin Chen had just broken through to the late human realm and already possessed the power of 20 horses, which was already quite good. As his cultivation improved, his strength would definitely become even greater. I'll rest for a while and wait for tomorrow's academy entrance examination. Qin Chen changed into a clean set of clothes and closed his eyes to rest in his room. Qin Mansion. The courtyard where Zhao Feng lived. Qin Yong. Tomorrow is the Heavenly Star Academy entrance examination. How is the matter I asked you to handle going? Zhao Feng sat on a chaise lounge, her eyes sinister. Returning to Madam, everything has been taken care of, it's just, Qin Yong bowed slightly. Just what? That person thinks that Madam gave too little and wants to add another 20,000. HMPH. Give it to him. Zhao Feng narrowed her eyes and said, as long as that little beast can't pass the Heavenly Star Academy entrance examination, what does a mere 20,000 matter? Yes. Qin Yong nodded, somewhat hesitant, but finally said, Madam, is it worth it for us to expend so much effort for such a small fry? If the people of Heavenly Star Academy know that we have bribed their assessment teachers, and Heavenly Star Academy becomes enraged, it would be very dangerous for our Qin family. HMPH. What do you know? Zhao Feng narrowed her eyes and said, no matter what, Qin Chen is still that old man's bloodline. Although we used Liang Yu's matter this time to drive their mother and son out of the Qin mansion, if that old man wants to be stubborn, he can still bring their mother and son back to the mansion. But if that kid fails to pass the Heavenly Star Academy entrance examination and is expelled from the academy, it will be different. Even if that old man is unwilling, it will be to no avail. What I want is for the Qin Yuqi and her son to never be able to return to the Qin family in this lifetime. Zhao Feng shouted sharply, her face twisted. Qin Yong suddenly understood. Madam, your subordinate understands. Zhao Feng nodded. You have time to communicate with them again. Money is not a problem. What I hope is that there will be no mistakes this time. If that kid passes the academy entrance examination, then it will be troublesome. Mother, what are you worried about? This time, all the students in the entire grade will participate in the academy entrance examination. I guarantee you that even if the Qin Chen has awakened his bloodline, I will cripple him in the subsequent assessments. The door opened, and Qin Fen walked in with a confident look. Fenair. Seeing the person arriving, Zhao Feng smiled and said, How has your cultivation been these days? Qin Fen grinned hideously and said, Mother, don't worry. Your son has already broken through to the late stage peak of the human level, and is only one step away from the earth level. Dealing with that little brat Qin Chen is more than enough. I can cripple him with one move. A hint of gratification appeared on Zhao Feng's face, and she praised, Good, Fenair, but you can't set your sights only on Qin Chen. Mother hopes that you can learn from your elder brother and become the top genius in the royal capital. Mother, you always want me to learn from my elder brother. What kind of talent does my elder brother have? How can I compare with him? Qin Fen said dejectedly. His elder brother, Qin Feng, was the #1 genius of the Qin family and also Zhao Feng's pride. From a young age, Qin Feng showed extremely amazing talent. As early as several years ago, he had already broken through to the earth level and followed King Dingwu to fight on the battlefield, and made several great contributions. Now he is already the #1 centurion in the army, only one step away from becoming a general. It could be said that Qin Fen had lived in the shadow of his elder brother since he was a child. Fortunately, there was always Qin Chen to be his stepping stone. Hee, my good younger brother, you better pray that you don't awaken your bloodline tomorrow. Thinking of tomorrow's academy exam, the corners of Qin Fen's mouth slightly curved, and a hideous sneer appeared on his face. At this time, the Marquis of Wuan's residence. A group of students from the advanced class of the Heavenly Star Academy were gathered here, all of whom were noble children from official families in the royal capital. Congratulations, young Marquis, congratulations, young Marquis, for breaking through to the earth level in one fell swoop. Tomorrow you will be able to graduate from the Heavenly Star Academy. When the time comes, you will follow the Marquis of Wuan into the court to become an official, fight on the battlefield, and be granted the title of king and become a prime minister. It's all within reach. In the courtyard, this group of noble children surrounded a fair-skinned, gloomy-eyed young man, all flattering him. Hee. The gloomy young man was wearing brocade robes and lion cloud boots. Although it was the middle of winter, he was holding a paper fan, exuding an elegant demeanor. Then I will accept everyone's good intentions. Young Marquis is too polite. In the future, when young Marquis rises to prominence, please don't forget about us. Yes. Young Marquis is only 17 years old, yet he is already an earth-level expert. Among so many noble children in the entire royal capital, how many can compare to young Marquis? A group of people were fawning and bootlicking, extremely skilled. In the crowd, Wei Zhen's face was gloomy, and he looked at the gloomy young man unhappily. He and Li Qingfeng were both disciples of Marquis families and usually had a good relationship, interacting frequently, but at the same time, they were secretly competing with each other, and neither was willing to submit to the other. Now that Li Qingfeng had broken through to the earth level, while he was still struggling at the late stage peak of the human level, not only had his cultivation not improved these days, but it had even regressed a little. He had a faint feeling in his heart that the reason why he was like this had a great relationship with the kick that Qin Chen had given to his dantian back then. He had also looked for some doctors and pharmacists, but after the diagnosis, they all said that there was nothing wrong with him, which made him extremely irritable and increasingly resentful towards Qin Chen. Brother Li. After the surrounding people thinned out a bit, Wei Zhen immediately stepped forward. Oh, Brother Wei. Li Qingfeng smiled slightly, lightly tapped his palm with the fan, looked at Wei Zhen, a hint of superiority revealed in his eyes, and a smile that was not a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This time, I broke through to the earth level first. Brother Wei, you have to work hard and not slack off. I'm still waiting for Brother Wei to break through so we can spar and compete against each other. Brother Li, don't worry, Wei will not keep Brother Li waiting for long. Wei Zhen suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and said proudly, and then changed the subject. Wei has something to ask of you today. Oh, at tomorrow's academy exam, I hope Brother Li can help me teach someone a lesson. Wei Zhen gritted his teeth and said. Who? Li Qingfeng looked surprised. Wei Zhen was not someone who liked to ask for help, and besides, who did he need to ask him to teach a lesson to? Qin Chen. Wei Zhen narrowed his eyes and said word by word, hatred shooting out from his eyes. Li Qingfeng frowned. Which Qin Chen? Which one else could it be? It's the Qin Chen you know. Him. Li Qingfeng was stunned. Qin Chen's reputation was too great. Not only was he the illegitimate son of the Qin family, which was known as the military god family, but he was also the first student since the establishment of the Heavenly Star Academy who might be expelled because he could not awaken his bloodline. Therefore, although Qin Chen was only a junior class student, he had also heard of the other party's name. It's just that such a guy, Wei Zhen, could easily deal with himself, so why would he ask himself to take action? Being stared at by Li Qingfeng's suspicious gaze, Wei Zhen seemed to know the other party's doubts and gritted his teeth and said, this person is not as simple as you think. Oh, tell me about it. Li Qingfeng became interested. Wei Zhen explained the ins and outs of the matter, and the excitement on Li Qingfeng's face became even more intense. He glanced at Wei Zhen with disdain, seemingly disdaining him for being defeated by a waste, and said indifferently, he, that's a bit interesting, I agree. Anyway, he had already broken through to the Earth level, and he would be able to graduate from the Heavenly Star Academy after the exam. Teaching Qin Chen a lesson, no one would be able to control him. Kanwang Mansion, Training Field. Scattering Star Splendor. Zhao Lingshan held a starlight treasured sword, and with a thrust, the sky seemed to have countless stars flickering, densely packed, unavoidable. Clang clang dang. The crisp sound of metal clashing resounded, and the three guards retreated one after another, stopping only after retreating nearly 10 steps. On their chests, several torn sword marks appeared, touching the inner armor inside. Princess's cultivation is superb, we are ashamed of ourselves. Several guards sighed, lowering their swords. Clap clap. King Kang Zhao Jing stood aside, clapping his hands, his face full of smiles, and said gratefully to Liang Yu beside him, thank you for Master Liang's guidance, which has allowed my daughter's cultivation to improve by leaps and bounds. In just 1 month, she has broken through to the Earth level and will be able to graduate from the Heavenly Star Academy tomorrow. Liang Yu said lightly, King Kang is too kind. That is also because the princess has extraordinary talent, awakened a 3rd-grade bloodline, and her spiritual power talent has reached orange. Therefore, cultivating this old man's spiritual secret technique can achieve twice the result with half the effort and break through to the Earth level within a month. King Kang smiled and said, no matter what, all of this is thanks to Master Yu. After my daughter graduates from the Heavenly Star Academy, this king hopes that she can follow Master Liang to learn and strive to become a true weapon refiner as soon as possible. Liang Yu said, I let her break through to the Earth level as soon as possible and graduate from the Heavenly Star Academy, which is also exactly what I intend. Ha ha. King Kang laughed. Tomorrow will be the Heavenly Star Academy's year-end exam. I wonder if Master Liang is interested in watching my daughter's exam tomorrow. A remarkable figure suddenly appeared in Liang Yu's mind, and he exhaled and said, that is a must. Liang Yu and King Kang chatted and laughed as they left the training field, and Zhao Lingshan continued to cultivate. A day passed quickly. Today is the day of the Academy Grand Examination. Qin Chen dressed early in the morning, full of energy, and walked out of his room, only to see his mother busy in the kitchen. Chenair. Qin Yuqi saw Qin Chen, stopped what she was doing, and quickly brought over a bowl of steaming noodles, along with some cooked food. Mother, today is the Academy Grand Examination, you don't need to be busy, come with me and watch, Qin Chen said while eating. In order to prevent Qin Chen from feeling pressure, Qin Yuqi had never mentioned the Academy Grand Examination these past few days. Today was the day of the exam, and she originally wanted to give him some advice, but she was worried that Qin Chen would feel pressured, so she had been very hesitant. She didn't expect Qin Chen to bring it up himself. All right, you go ahead, I'll come watch later. Qin Yuqi nodded, looking at Qin Chen gently. Tianxing Academy was bustling with noise and excitement. The annual grand examination was the biggest event of Tianxing Academy, held once a year. At that time, many dignitaries from the royal capital would come, and even the royal palace would send experts. The elusive dean would also personally participate. And the annual grand examination was naturally extremely important to every student of the academy, and they couldn't afford to lose. At this time, groups of students stood together in twos and threes, discussing animatedly. Before the grand examination even started, many students had already gathered in the academy's martial arts field, waiting for the start of the exam. Around the martial arts field, there were also many high platforms, which were for the many dignitaries who came to visit, as well as the students' parents. Qin Chen thought he had arrived early, but when he arrived at the martial arts field, more than half of the students had already arrived. Look, isn't that Qin Chen? I heard that he still hasn't awakened his bloodline yet. If he can't awaken it one more time, he will be expelled from the academy. This person is a disciple of the Qin family, the grandson of the Dingwu king. How could he not even awaken his bloodline? It's too incredible. TSK, I heard that he is the Qin family's illegitimate child. The inheritance of the bloodline comes from his parents. His mother is the Qin family's eldest daughter, so her bloodline is naturally not bad, but his father. Shush. Shut up. No matter what, he is still a member of the Qin family. If someone hears you, do you still want to live? Wherever Qin Chen went, whispers would follow. The surrounding students all secretly glanced at Qin Chen with surprised eyes. Qin Chen heard these words in his ears, expressionless. These words could not stir up the slightest ripple in his heart. Young Master Chen, you finally arrived. A voice of surprise came, and Lin Qian and Zhang Ying excitedly came to Qin Chen's side. Are you two all right? Qin Chen looked at the two of them. More than half a month had passed, and the injuries on their bodies had healed, and they looked full of energy. We're fine, but young Master Chen, did Wei Zhen cause you any trouble later? Thinking of what happened last time, the two of them were still apprehensive. Him. Qin Chen smiled faintly. If he dares to come, I will make sure he never returns. Qin Chen's casual and domineering expression stunned Lin Qian and Zhang Ying. They took a deep look at Qin Chen and found that this brother of theirs was really different from before. By the way, young Master Chen, the incantation you gave us last time was too magical. After Lin Qian and I practiced it, the speed of gathering true energy was several times faster than before. This is really, alas, we too don't know how to thank you. After the two came back to their senses, they seemed to have thought of something, and immediately said excitedly, with a look of excitement on their faces. In half a month, the two not only broke through the middle stage of the human realm, but also went a step further, which they had never dared to imagine before. It's just a small matter, don't take it to heart, Qin Chen smiled easily. He had already seen that the aura on the two of them had obviously broken through. Not only had they entered the middle stage of the human realm, but they were also not far from the late stage of the human realm. It seems that Lin Qian and Zhang Ying's talents are not bad, otherwise, just relying on an incantation, they would never have improved so quickly. Qin Chen, I didn't expect you to really dare to participate in the year-end grand examination. At this moment, a mocking voice suddenly sounded, and Qin Fen and several students walked over, looking at Qin Chen with contempt, and blocked Qin Chen and the others. These people were all extraordinary in momentum. Obviously, they were all disciples of the advanced class. They crossed their arms and looked at Qin Chen and the others leisurely, their eyes narrowed, and the corners of their mouths seemed to smile but not smile, like a cat playing with a mouse. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying's footsteps stagnated, and nervous expressions appeared on their faces. They all looked at Qin Chen. They all recognized Qin Fen and knew that this person was Qin Chen's second elder brother, but the relationship between the two sides did not seem to be very good. At least in the academy, if Qin Chen had any trouble, they had never seen Qin Fen and the others come forward. Get out of the way. Qin Chen raised his head expressionlessly and looked at Qin Fen. His expression made the few students beside Qin Fen slightly stunned. Ha ha, interesting. Qin Fen, is this the illegitimate child of your Qin family? As the second brother, he doesn't seem to care about you very much. The few people looked at each other and laughed, their eyes narrowed, as if they wanted to see how Qin Fen would deal with it. At this time, the eyes of the other students around also focused on this place. Qin Chen raised his head calmly and said coldly to the two, "Get out of the way, a good dog doesn't block the road." The expressions on the faces of several people suddenly froze, the smiles on the corners of their mouths bloomed halfway, and their faces instantly became extremely ugly. In front of everyone, they were actually called dogs by Qin Chen. How would they be able to hang out in the royal capital in the future? In an instant, a trace of coldness and killing intent quickly rose from the two of them. "Boy, what did you say? Qin Fen, is this the disciple of your Qin family? Qin Fen, don't blame this young master for not giving your Qin family face today, I'll teach him a lesson." Several people took a step forward, and a chilling chill bloomed from their bodies. Their faces were gloomy as if they could drip water, and their fists were clenched and creaking, staring at Qin Chen. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were shocked, their eyes were nervous, and they hurriedly mobilized the true energy in their bodies, and stepped forward to block Qin Chen. The expressions of the two were like they were facing a great enemy, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. At this time, Qin Chen suddenly pushed the two away and said lightly, "Lin Tian, Zhang Ying, you two get out of the way. I want to see. In the year-end grand examination, in front of everyone, how will they teach me a lesson?" A faint mocking smile hung on the corner of Qin Chen's mouth, and that nonchalant appearance surprised Qin Fen and the people around him. They hurriedly looked around, their expressions stagnated, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Although they were in a corner of the square, many people had already noticed the situation here, especially on the surrounding high positions. Many strong people from the major forces in the royal capital and princes and nobles who had been invited had already arrived. With their cultivation, they could naturally notice the scene here, and many sharp eyes had already focused on them. The two felt a chill in their hearts. Today was the day of the Academy's year-end grand examination. If they accidentally disrupted the Academy's year-end grand examination and angered the high-level officials of the Academy, even they, these aristocratic children, would find it difficult to please them. HMPH. Boy, don't be arrogant. You better hope that you don't meet us during the year-end grand examination, otherwise, I will let you know what regret is. The expressions on the faces of several people changed for a long time, and finally they could only snort coldly, suppressing the anger in their hearts, and retreated. Hee hee. Qin Chen sneered, not even looking at the few people, and led Lin Tian and Zhang Ying directly past them. Qin Chen's contempt made Qin Fen and the few people around him so angry that smoke came out of their orifices, and they almost couldn't suppress the anger in their hearts. This kind of contempt was even more infuriating and suffocating than being insulted in public. But they couldn't get angry, they could only grit their teeth and suppress the anger in their bodies. "Little brute, you're still being arrogant at this time. I'll see how arrogant you can be after the bloodline awakening ceremony is over," Qin Fen said with gloomy eyes. Just as Qin Chen and Lin Tian were preparing to leave, another group of people suddenly walked in from outside the plaza. Each member of this group wore gleaming fur coats, possessed an extraordinary bearing, and had eyes as sharp as an eagle's, giving people a feeling of intimidation. Wherever this group passed, many of the students present retreated to the sides, their faces showing fear. This group was led by Li Qingfeng, a group of sons of princes and nobles. Wei Zhen and Wei Zhen were also walking in the crowd, secretly depressed as they watched Li Qingfeng, the leader, strutting around ostentatiously. Suddenly, the two men's gazes caught sight of Qin Chen, and their expressions instantly stiffened. "Wei Zhen, is that Qin Chen you were talking about?" Li Qingfeng noticed the two men's gazes and suddenly said with a smile. "Yes, it's him," Wei Zhen said through gritted teeth, his eyes burning with anger. As Qin Chen was walking forward, he seemed to sense something and turned his head, seeing Wei Zhen's gaze and the icy killing intent contained within. Then, Qin Chen's gaze fell on Li Qingfeng, who was next to Wei Zhen. Although Li Qingfeng had restrained his aura, with Qin Chen's discerning eyes, he could see through his cultivation level at a glance. The two men's gazes suddenly collided in the void. Hey, interesting. Li Qingfeng's eyes flashed. It was the first time he had seen someone who didn't avoid his gaze at all, especially since it was the Academy's infamous good-for-nothing who hadn't awakened his bloodline after several years of enrollment. Qin Chen only glanced at him indifferently before turning his head and ignoring him. Young Master Chen, that person just now was Li Qingfeng, the son of the Marquis of Wuhan. His cultivation is extremely high. It is said that, like Wei Zhen, he is only one step away from entering the Earth realm. The Marquis of Wuhan has great power in the court, so many students from the advanced classes follow Li Qingfeng, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying explained from the side at this time. He's more than just about to enter the Earth realm. This person is already a powerhouse at the Earth realm, Qin Chen thought, but he didn't say it out loud. Earth realm martial artists couldn't attract his attention at all. Alright, let's not talk about these things. Let's go. Let's find a place to sit down. Qin Chen smiled and walked towards the inner part of the plaza with Lin Tian and Zhang Ying. As long as they were disciples of the Tianxing Academy, they had to participate in the year-end exam. Tianxing Academy had more than 10 classes, including elementary, intermediate, and advanced classes, with thousands of disciples. So many disciples gathered on the plaza, making it particularly noisy. On the plaza, experts from various major forces in the royal capital, including some princes, nobles, and generals, also rushed to gather around the periphery of the plaza, forming various camps. Tianxing Academy was the #1 academy in the Darky Kingdom. The major forces, relatives of the imperial family, princes, nobles, and generals in the royal capital would send their children to Tianxing Academy. Every year, the academy would invite the students' parents to attend the year-end exam. Master Liang Yu, this way, please. On the high platform, Prince Kang smiled and waved his hand, leading Liang Yu to his side. Zhao Lingshan stood respectfully to the side. Master Liang Yu, I didn't expect the son of the Marquis of Wuhan to have also broken through to the Earth realm. Does Master think this person will be a match for Shanae? Since entering the plaza, Liang Yu's gaze had been fixed on a certain corner of the plaza. Under Prince Kang's questioning gaze, he looked over and saw Li Qingfeng's group. Thinking that Liang Yu was paying attention to Li Qingfeng, he said with a smile. Oh. Liang Yu was stunned for a moment before reacting and smiling. Li Qingfeng has extremely high talent. It is indeed somewhat difficult for Lingshan to defeat him, but I am not paying attention to him. Instead, I saw a young friend. Prince Kang looked puzzled and said, young friend. He looked up, but didn't see any students who were particularly noteworthy, and couldn't help but ask in confusion, which one is Master Liang referring to? Anyone who could be called a young friend by Liang Yu must be extraordinary. Is Master talking about Qin Chen? At this time, Lingshan suddenly spoke. She saw Qin Chen and suddenly felt a flicker in her heart. Liang Yu smiled, his expression becoming solemn, and solemnly warned, Lingshan, if you encounter this person later, you must be polite and say hello to him on my behalf. A trace of curiosity flashed in the depths of Zhao Lingshan's eyes, but she respectfully said, yes, Master. She was puzzled in her heart. Who exactly was this Qin Chen that could make her master pay so much attention to him? She remembered that when Qin Chen and her master left for a while in the weaponry hall, her master's attitude towards him had changed greatly after they returned. What exactly happened between her master and Qin Chen at that time? Shanae, who exactly is this Qin Chen that Master Liang is talking about? Prince Kang, unaware of anything, asked in confusion from the side. Father, it's Qin Chen from the Dingwu royal mansion, Qin Yuqi's son. Him. Prince Kang was stunned. He had indeed heard of Qin Chen, the illegitimate son of the Dingwu royal mansion, who was said to have not awakened his bloodline even now. Why would Master Liang pay attention to such a young man? Liang Yu smiled without saying a word, only revealing a deep solemnity in his gaze as he looked at Qin Chen. A month ago, after Qin Chen had been to the weaponry hall, Liang Yu had secretly sent people to investigate him. What surprised Liang Yu was that Qin Chen, who had amazed him in the weaponry hall, was actually an illegitimate son of the Dingwu royal mansion, and, moreover, had not awakened his bloodline even now, and was about to be expelled from the Tianxing Academy. He had also investigated the many grievances of the Tianwu royal mansion, knowing that Qin Chen had recently been expelled from the Qin family. Such a young man, yet he displayed amazing talent in the art of refining, even surpassing him, a second-grade weapon refiner. Where did he get his weapon refining skills from? Since he possesses such profound weapon refining abilities, why was he suppressed like this in the Qin family? He even lived worse than a servant. This young man must have an unknown secret. A series of questions swirled in Liang Yu's brain. In his opinion, Qin Chen's performance in the Tianwu royal mansion was definitely deliberately playing the fool to deceive others and hide himself. But no matter what Qin Chen's purpose was, as long as he thought of the refining that day, Liang Yu's whole body would boil with excitement, and he even had the urge to worship Qin Chen as his teacher. Therefore, after learning that today was the Tianxing Academy examination, Liang Yu immediately accepted Prince Kang's invitation to come and watch, the purpose being to find an opportunity to contact Qin Chen, but without causing his disgust. Brother Wang, you actually came to Tianxing Academy too. Are you here to watch your niece Lingshan's year-end exam? Ha ha. With your niece Lingshan's talent, she will definitely shine brightly in today's exam. At this time, a frivolous voice suddenly rang in the ears of the few people, and they saw a middle-aged man with a bloated figure and a wretched appearance walking over with a flattering expression. It was Prince Qi, Zhao Qirui. Standing beside him was a richly dressed woman with phoenix eyes and thin lips, Zhao Feng. Eighth brother, what are you doing here? Prince Kang, Zhao Jing, frowned as he looked at Zhao Qirui. Zhao Jing and Zhao Qirui were both relatives of the imperial family, so they naturally had some connections, but their levels were too far apart. Zhao Jing had always looked down upon princes like Zhao Qirui, who spent the days indulging in pleasure and only knew how to ruin the imperial family's reputation. He, elder brother, the Heavenly Star Academy entrance examination is also a major event for my great Qi kingdom. Your younger brother came to observe and broaden his horizons. Zhao Qirui didn't mind Prince Kang's disdain, his gaze fell on Liang Yu, and he smiled. This should be Grandmaster Liang Yu of the Weaponry Hall, right? I heard that Grandmaster Liang and the Tianwu royal mansion had some misunderstandings before. This person beside me is Zhao Feng, the first Madam of Anping Marquis. Grandmaster Liang and Anping Marquis are both elites of my great Qi kingdom. Any misunderstandings should be cleared up. Don't hold it in your heart, lest it hurt harmony. Grandmaster Liang Yu, I didn't expect to meet you here, it's really unexpected. Zhao Feng hurriedly seized the opportunity, stepped forward 2 steps and said, previously, my Qin family had some misunderstandings with the Grandmaster, but those were all due to the ignorance of the family's younger generation. If there were any offenses, I hope Grandmaster Liang Yu will forgive us. My son, Qin Fen, has also been taught a lesson. Madame Zhao is joking, your Qin family's affairs have nothing to do with me, Liang, so there is no need to explain to me. Zhao Feng has always harbored ill intentions towards Qin Chen and his mother, wanting to curry favor with Qin Chen. How could she be close to him? Liang Yu sneered in his heart. Seeing that Liang Yu was unmoved, Zhao Feng continued, in order to express our Qin mansion's apology, not long ago I expelled the unfilial disciple Qin Chen, who had offended you, along with his mother Qin Yuqi from the Qin family. They are no longer considered members of my Qin family. This way, I can express my loyalty to Liang Yu and win him over again. Secondly, even if the old master comes back and wants to take back Qin Yuqi and her son, this matter has already become known to everyone in the capital, and the old master will also make concessions considering the reputation of the Qin mansion. Zhao Feng calculated in her heart, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but rise slightly. Prince Kang, who was on the side, heard the name Qin Chen, his eyes lit up, and he suddenly stared over with great interest. What? Hearing this, Liang Yu's expression suddenly changed, and cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead. You said Qin Chen was expelled from the Qin family because of a conflict with me. That's right. Zhao Feng's eyes lit up, thinking that she had gained Liang Yu's approval, and said triumphantly, that trash Qin Chen dared to offend you, Grandmaster Liang Yu. My Qin family is already showing great kindness by just expelling him. In my opinion, this person should have his limbs crippled directly, and then kneel at the entrance of the weaponry hall for 10 days and 10 nights, in order to relieve the hatred in your heart, Grandmaster. Zhao Feng spoke with excitement, but Liang Yu's heart was dripping with cold sweat. If that's really the case, then Qin Chen must hate himself to death. The Qin family is trying to kill him. Liang Yu roared in his heart. For a moment, Liang Yu's body turned cold, and cold sweat dripped down his back. Grandmaster Liang, are you all right? Zhao Jing couldn't help but ask when he saw that Liang Yu seemed to be a little off. I'm fine. Liang Yu suddenly woke up. His heart sank. Now that things have come to this, he can only find a way to make amends. Liang Yu glared fiercely at Zhao Feng, who was still talking endlessly. He even had the heart to cut her into pieces alive, and snorted coldly. I don't want to hear more about your Qin family's affairs. Madam Zhao, please leave. Liang Yu waved his hand, his tone already unkind. The smile on Zhao Feng's face froze. She didn't know what had happened, but she quickly recovered and said, Grandmaster Liang, I sincerely want to reconcile with you, Grandmaster. In this way, if you, Grandmaster, are not satisfied with my Qin family, please tell me. As long as I can do it, I will definitely not refuse. He. Liang Yu chuckled, with a mocking expression on his face. Madam Zhao is joking. I, Liang, dare not try to establish a relationship with your Qin family. I, Liang, still have something to discuss with Prince Kang. Madam, please leave quickly. Liang Yu turned his head, his face gloomy, and no longer looked at Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng's face instantly became extremely ugly, and for a moment she didn't know whether to leave or stay. At this time, Prince Qi, Zhao Qirui, said with a smile, Grandmaster Liang. He still wanted to mediate, but he didn't expect that Liang Yu wouldn't give him any face at all, and interrupted him directly before he could speak. Prince Qi, I, Liang, don't seem to be familiar with you, so I won't keep you any longer. Liang Yu's heart was secretly burning with anger. Zhao Qirui still wants to get his hands on Qin Yuqi. He doesn't even look at his own virtues. If Qin Chen sees himself staying with this person, wouldn't he be misunderstood again? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sneer. Prince Qi, as a member of the imperial family, you should pay attention to your influence sometimes. If you are always messing around with married women, others might think that the two of you have some improper affair. You. Zhao Qiru's face turned green from being told this, and he trembled with anger. Eighth brother, Grandmaster Liang is right. You have to pay attention to your behavior when you are with others in the future. Don't be careless about anyone, lest you lose the dignity of the imperial family. Zhao Jing glanced at Zhao Qirui coldly. Zhao Qirui dared to be angry but didn't dare to speak out. Zhao Jing's status in the royal family was much higher than his. At this time he could only suppress his depression and said, Yes, elder brother. The two of them immediately left in disgrace. Madam, how did the talk with Grandmaster Liang go? Zhao Feng had just returned to her stand when Qin Yong stepped forward and asked. Zhao Feng's face was pale, and a ferocious look surged in her eyes, and she said angrily, HMPH, just a second-grade weapon refiner. What's there to be arrogant about? Does he think he is the hall master of the weaponry hall? Zhao Qiru's face was also ugly, and he snorted coldly. How unreasonable, this Liang Yu is too arrogant. Seeing the two of them in a fit of anger, Qin Yong knew that they must have been humiliated just now, and hurriedly retreated to the side, not daring to provoke their bad luck. Grandmaster Liang, please calm down. Prince Qi has always been muddle-headed. Don't ruin your health for such a person. Zhao Jing said to Liang Yu to comfort him after Zhao Feng and others had just left. Liang Yu nodded, but didn't say anything, but his brows were tightly furrowed, thinking about how to dispel the bad impression he had in Qin Chen's heart. Alas, this Zhao Feng is simply harming people. Zhao Jing looked at Liang Yu with his brows furrowed, as if he was lost in thought, his gaze slightly fixed on where Qin Chen was. Who exactly is this person, that he can make Grandmaster Liang offend the Qin family and Prince Qi for him? After all, no matter what, the Qin family is also a leading wealthy family in the Great Qi Kingdom. although Liang Yu is a weapon refiner of the weaponry hall, he doesn't have to care about the faces of some families, but it is naturally better not to offend wealthy families like the Qin family if possible. Interesting, really interesting. Zhao Jing looked at where Qin Chen was, his eyes slightly narrowed, and he smiled meaningfully. Below the platform, Qin Chen and his two friends sat together. Chen Xiao, don't be nervous about the upcoming bloodline awakening ceremony. Just focus on sensing the power within your bloodline, and you'll definitely succeed. Don't worry. I feel like Chen Xiao is different from before. He'll definitely be able to awaken his bloodline this time. Misfortune reveals true feelings. Hearing Lin Qian and Zhang Ying's words, Qin Chen felt a warmth in his heart. Suddenly, Qin Chen turned his head and looked towards the entrance of the plaza. A slender figure slowly walked in from outside the plaza. Mother. Qin Yuqi arrived at the plaza, her gaze sweeping slightly. As if connected by telepathy, the mother and son's eyes met instantly. Qin Yuqi smiled slightly, giving Qin Chen an encouraging look. Then, she didn't walk towards Qin Chen, but instead found a random seat on the platform and quietly sat down. Although Qin Yuqi arrived silently, her captivating beauty instantly attracted the attention of many people. Who is that woman? She's so beautiful, a man exclaimed. Slap. His friend next to him immediately gave him a smack on the head, whispering, keep your voice down. You don't recognize her. She's the Qin family's eldest miss, Qin Baishan's youngest daughter, Qin Yuqi. What? It's her. The former #1 beauty of the capital, truly living up to her reputation. Above the platform, Zhao Feng's eyes narrowed at this scene, a fierce glint flashing within them. HMPH. I didn't expect that bitch Qin Yuqi would come too. Good. I can see how her precious son will be expelled from Tianxing Academy. Ha ha ha. Beside her, Prince Qi's eyes revealed a hint of lust. The dean has arrived. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted, and the entire plaza instantly quieted down. A group of people walked in from outside the plaza, among them an old man with white hair and beard, wearing a moon-white robe, who was none other than the dean of Tianxing Academy, Chu Weiken. Beside him were several extraordinary experts. The group quickly arrived at the main table in the very center of the high platform. To everyone's shock, while Dean Chu Weiken usually sat in the main seat during previous annual exams, this time, after a moment of courteous refusal, it was actually a middle-aged man wearing a cyan martial robe who sat in the most prominent position, with Dean Chu Weiken merely sitting beside him. Who exactly is that guy? He's actually sitting in the main seat. I've never seen him before. Could he be a big shot from the royal palace? Many students below whispered among themselves. Oh. This time His Majesty actually sent the Spirit Marshal King, Xiao Zhan, to participate in this assessment. It seems His Majesty attaches great importance to this assessment of Tianxing Academy. Upon seeing the black-clothed man, Prince Kang blurted out in surprise. The Spirit Marshal King, Xiao Zhan, is a war god figure of the Great Qi Kingdom, with his cultivation reaching the peak of the Fourth Order Xuan realm, only one step away from entering the Zong realm. He is known as the #1 expert of the Great Qi Kingdom and is the guardian of the royal palace. Only he could sit above Dean Chu Weiken, who was also a Fourth Order Xuan realm expert. At this time, some princes, nobles, and martial arts experts who had seen Xiao Zhan secretly discussed, although Tianxing Academy is the #1 academy in the capital, it's not important enough to warrant the Spirit Marshal King Xiao Zhan's personal presence, right? The Spirit Marshal King's visit this time definitely has another purpose. Could it be because of that reason? Prince Kang's heart stirred, suddenly thoughtful. The venue for the year-end exam was the Academy's martial arts training ground. Although the high platform was filled with many people, it still appeared extremely vast and magnificent. Everyone, today is the day of our Tianxing Academy's year-end exam. Welcome to everyone who has come to participate. An old man wearing a grey robe walked onto the high platform and said in a loud voice, his eyes sharp. This person was Ji Hong, the Vice Dean of Tianxing Academy. He was in charge of hosting all the large and small meetings of the Academy. This year's exam is divided into two parts. Ji Hong spoke loudly on the stage. The year-end exam is divided into Bloodline Awakening and Martial Arts Competition. Bloodline awakening is the process of gathering all the disciples who have not yet awakened the bloodlines together again to receive a collective baptism. This process is not valued and is equivalent to watching a ceremony. After all, almost every student who can join Tianxing Academy can awaken their bloodline. The reason why they haven't awakened is often simply because they haven't reached the age. Most of these people are new students who have just joined the academy this year, and, as expected, most of them will awaken their own bloodlines at the year-end awakening ceremony. However, this year's awakening ceremony seems a bit different. Some people who knew the inside story had strange expressions on their faces, searching among the students. Because they heard that Tianxing Academy had a student who had joined the academy for more than 2 years but had never awakened his bloodline. According to the rules of Tianxing Academy, if a student has not awakened his bloodline within 3 years of entering the academy, he will be expelled from the academy. Although this rule has existed since the beginning of the academy, it has never happened once in the 100-year history of Tianxing Academy. But today, this record may be broken. As long as this person still fails to awaken his bloodline at this bloodline awakening ceremony, he will become the first student in the 100-year history of Tianxing Academy to be expelled for failing to awaken his bloodline. If the other party was just an ordinary person, he probably wouldn't have attracted so much attention. But this student who hasn't awakened his bloodline is actually Qin Baishan's grandson, Qin the god of war of the Great Qi Kingdom, and Qin Chen, the illegitimate child of the Qin family. With so many factors combined, people can't help but gossip. After Ji Hong announced the process, a large group of junior class disciples who had not yet awakened the bloodlines were gathered on the plaza, totaling more than 100 people. On the plaza, people from the bloodline Holy Land had already set up various instruments. Under the gaze of so many people, many students who came to the plaza felt extremely nervous. Quickly tell me, which one is Qin Chen of the Qin family? Have you found him yet? The Qin family has a tiger father but a dog son. It's unbelievable that a disciple hasn't awakened his bloodline for more than 2 years. If he still doesn't awaken today, the Qin family will probably become a joke in our great Qi kingdom. Hee. Brother Li, you're wrong. Although his mother is from the Qin family, his father is not. The so-called tiger father and dog son simply doesn't hold up. That's true. Perhaps Qin Chen's bloodline can't be awakened because of his father. How could the number one beauty of our great Qi kingdom find such a man? Could it be that she was, during an outing? Hush. Do you not want to live? You can't say some things randomly. Be careful with your head. Amidst the noisy crowd, Qin Fen and others' sinister gazes were fixed on Qin Chen's location. At this sight, everyone's eyes were stunned, because they discovered that Qin Chen had no intention of getting up and entering the plaza. Qin Chen, it's the turn of the students who haven't awakened the bloodlines to receive the bloodline baptism. Why are you still sitting there? Are you trying to muddle through? Qin Fen stood up abruptly and shouted loudly at Qin Chen in front of everyone, feeling extremely happy in his heart. Ha. Qin Chen is definitely afraid of not being able to awaken his bloodline, so he doesn't dare to go up. The more afraid he is, the more I want to expose him. Qin Fen's loud shout immediately focused everyone's attention on Qin Chen. Qin Chen, what's wrong with you? Lin Qian asked Qin Chen in a low voice, his face worried. Zhang Ying stood up and shouted angrily, Qin Fen, what nonsense are you talking about? Young Master Chen just isn't ready yet. What's the rush? HMPH, it's like the emperor isn't anxious, but the eunuch is dying. Zhang Ying, what kind of person do you think you are, daring to talk to me like that? Qin Fen glanced at Zhang Ying disdainfully and laughed loudly, not ready yet. Ha, look at the stage, everyone is ready. Could it be that he's the only one who's not ready? I think he lacks the confidence to awaken his bloodline and wants to muddle through. HMPH. Luckily, my Qin family has already kicked this good-for-nothing mother and son out. Otherwise, seeing that he's 16 years old and hasn't even awakened his bloodline, it's simply a disgrace to my Qin family. Qin Chen, if I were you, I wouldn't even have the face to live in this world. I would have died long ago. The Qin family has already kicked Qin Chen out. Many dignitaries present immediately caught a trace of information from Qin Fen's words. What nonsense are you talking about? People like you should die first, Zhang Ying said, trembling with anger. Zhang Ying, don't waste your breath on him. Qin Chen sat silently on the stand, ignoring Qin Fen's clamor, his expression calm and composed, as if he were watching a clown. Not far away, Qin Yuqi looked at Qin Chen worriedly, her hands tightly intertwined, feeling heartbroken to see Qin Chen being questioned. Qin Chen, you are on the roster. Why don't you come up here? An academy instructor in charge of the awakening ceremony suddenly glanced at the roster in his hand, walked a few steps to Qin Chen, and said with an unkind tone. This person had triangular eyes, a pointed mouth, and a monkey-like face, looking very wretched. His cold gaze was like a sharp blade, falling fiercely on Qin Chen, seemingly angry that he had disrupted the order of the assessment. Madam, this is Instructor Go Zhu, whom we bribed. With him here, Qin Chen's bloodline awakening ceremony today will definitely not succeed, Qin Yong immediately whispered in Madame Zhao's ear. Madame Zhao smiled sinisterly, narrowed her eyes, and said, okay, then let's wait and see a good show. As she spoke, she glanced at Qin Yuqi below, whose face was slightly pale, and thought triumphantly, little slut, you still have such a dignified look. Let's see how you cry later, ha ha ha. On the high platform, Spiritual Marshal King Xiao Zhan and Dean Chu Weiken frowned slightly. Vice Dean Ji Hong, who was in charge of hosting the ceremony, immediately stood up and said in a deep voice, Qin Chen, why aren't you accepting the bloodline baptism? He had also heard about Qin Chen's matter and understood it. This student cultivated very diligently, and Ji Hong admired him very much in his heart. As an academy, he certainly didn't want to give up on any student. However, after all, academy rules were academy rules. If Qin Chen had not awakened his bloodline for 3 consecutive years, then he would have no choice but to expel him. Under the gaze of everyone, Qin Chen slowly stood up and said calmly, Vice Dean Ge, it's not that this student is unwilling to participate in the bloodline awakening, but that this student's bloodline has already been awakened. Qin Chen's words stunned everyone. Ha ha, your bloodline has already been awakened. Qin Fen seemed to have heard a funny joke. After being stunned, he laughed wantonly, looking contemptuous. Qin Chen, you're even saying such lies in order to muddle through. If you could awaken your bloodline, wouldn't sows be able to climb trees? He cupped his fist towards Vice Dean Ge and said, Vice Dean, in this student's opinion, the academy should directly expel this kind of treacherous person, why give him another chance? Qin Fen's suggestion drew agreement from a group of people. That's right, the academy might as well just expel this kind of student. Lying in front of the deans and adults is unforgivable. If you don't even have the most basic integrity, how can you become a disciple of my Heavenly Star Academy? Wei Zhen and a group of people booed from below, looking at Qin Chen with contempt. They didn't dare to directly cause trouble for Qin Chen, but it would be a waste if they didn't seize such an opportunity to beat a drowning dog. At this time, everyone on the stage looked at Qin Fen, who was sneering repeatedly, and couldn't help but think to themselves, it is said that Qin Chen and his mother are not welcome in the Qin family. Now it seems that this is indeed the case. Qin Chen, do you know what the crime is for deceiving the academy? Vice Dean Ge, I propose to directly revoke Qin Chen's qualification for the test and expel him from the academy. Go Zhu was also overjoyed. He had received the benefits of Madame Zhao, and his purpose was to prevent Qin Chen from passing the assessment. Who knew that Qin Chen would not obey the academy's arrangement? Wouldn't it be even more convenient if he could be directly expelled? Ji Hong glanced at Go Zhu unhappily. It was fine for the students to boo, but why was this Go Zhu, as an academy instructor, interfering? Qin Chen, you said you awakened your bloodline, do you have any evidence? Ji Hong said in a deep voice. Qin Chen frowned. He had forgotten that his bloodline awakening had not been verified by a bloodline master from the bloodline Holy Land. He had to say, no, this student awakened it on his own. Ha ha ha, awakened it on his own. Before Qin Chen could finish speaking, Qin Fen was already holding his stomach and laughing. He was bowing, laughing so hard that tears were almost coming out. He sneered as he laughed, which of those who can awaken their bloodline on their own isn't a well-known genius in the kingdom? You, a good-for-nothing, can also awaken your bloodline on your own. It's simply laughable, ha ha, ha ha ha. The field buzzed with discussion, and many people looked at Qin Chen with pity. In their opinion, Qin Chen was definitely afraid of not being able to awaken his bloodline and wanted to muddle through. Alas, how could the dignified King Dingwu, Qin Baishan, have such a grandson? Without evidence, you falsely claim to have awakened your bloodline on your own. Vice Dean, this matter is already very clear. I believe that Qin Chen has an evil mind and should be directly expelled from the academy as a warning to others, Gozu said sternly, cupping his fist. Qin Chen glanced at Gozu. He didn't seem to have offended this person before, did he? Why was this person targeting him everywhere? He was too lazy to look at the other party and cupped his fist at Ge Hong. Vice Dean Ge, the bloodline test is very simple. You only need the academy to arrange for a bloodline master to verify it, and you will know whether this student has awakened his bloodline. Qin Chen's calm appearance made many people on the scene feel a little surprised. Could it be that this person really awakened his bloodline on his own? After all, such a lie is easily exposed. Gozu's heart also sank. Could it be that this kid really awakened his bloodline? Although the probability of this matter is low, it is not impossible. He hurriedly cupped his fist and said, Vice Dean, now is the time for the year-end exam. How can the exam process be disrupted because of this Qin Chen alone? This matter is absolutely inappropriate. Even if it is to be verified, I believe that it should be verified during the bloodline awakening ceremony. After a moment's thought, Ge Hong immediately said in a deep voice, All right, Qin Chen, since you say you have awakened your bloodline, then join the bloodline awakening ceremony. As long as you show any bloodline aura during the baptism, it will be considered that you have passed the assessment. But if you have not awakened your bloodline, yet disrupt the year-end exam order, this old man will definitely expel you in public. Ge Hong's tone was stern, his voice like a bell. Qin Chen cupped his hands and said, Yes. Qin Fen watched Qin Chen walk into the square, and couldn't help but sneer, Vice Dean Ge is really kind. Qin Chen clearly wants to muddle through, yet he still gives him a chance. It would be strange if this trash could awaken his bloodline. Qin Chen paused and turned his head, saying, Qin Fen, you keep saying that I want to muddle through, dare to make a bet with me. Make a bet. What bet? If I haven't awakened my bloodline, after the baptism ends, I will let you do whatever you want. But if I have awakened my bloodline, I won't do anything to you. I just want you to bark like a dog a few times in this square and shout that you are an idiot. How about it? Humph. You are the idiot. What? You wouldn't dare, would you? Qin Chen said with a smile that was not a smile. I wouldn't dare. Qin Chen's smile instantly enraged Qin Fen. He quietly glanced at Gozu, and his heart instantly settled down. He sneered, Since you insist on seeking death, then I will fulfill your wish. Ha ha. With so many people watching, young Master Qin, you must not go back on your word. Qin Chen smiled coldly and walked onto the square. After Qin Chen's disturbance, the entire year-end assessment suddenly became interesting. The two Qin family disciples were actually fighting in public, and the nobles present all felt a subtle aura from it. You, stand here. Gozu led Qin Chen to a white crystal and shouted coldly. At this time, in the center of the square, more than 100 students who had not yet awakened the bloodlines were gathered, each holding a white crystal in their hands. Awakening baptism, begin. A bloodline instructor from Tianxing Academy stood in the center of the square and shouted loudly. Then, above the entire square, a hazy white light suddenly rose, and a sacred aura suddenly spread out. The year-end bloodline awakening of Tianxing Academy is jointly organized by Tianxing Academy and the Bloodline Holy Land of the royal capital. The Bloodline Holy Land has sent a full 5 first-order bloodline masters to participate in the awakening ceremony. Hua! A powerful guiding force enveloped the entire square. The white crystals in the hands of many students were lit up one after another, and each student was enveloped in white light. On the stands, Qin Yuqi's hand suddenly clenched, staring nervously at Qin Chen. Not only her, but at this moment, almost more than half of the people present were focused on Qin Chen. Along with the powerful bloodline power flowing, Qin Chen's body was shrouded in white light, but there was no trace of bloodline power appearing. Ha ha, I said. This Qin Chen is a liar, right? Qin Fen immediately laughed loudly. The crowd frowned slightly, but did not say anything. The awakening ceremony had only just begun, and it could not explain everything yet. Suddenly, a tiger's roar sounded in the arena. On the crystal in the hand of a student who was about 12 years old and had a somewhat immature appearance, a void phantom of a fierce tiger suddenly appeared. The scarlet tiger roared to the sky, emitting a red halo, and merged with the young man, making people feel dizzy. Someone has awakened their bloodline. It's Gao Hong from the primary class, the second son of Gao, the deputy commander of the Royal Capital City Guard. Scarlet Tiger bloodline, Gao Hong is only 12 years old, and he has awakened the second-grade Scarlet Tiger bloodline. His future is limitless. At the age of 12, awakening a second-grade bloodline is enough to be called a genius in the Great Qi Kingdom, and his future is bright. Ha ha, I will be hosting a banquet in my mansion tonight. If you are free, please come to my mansion and give me some face. Deputy Commander Gao was sitting on the stands, smiling so hard that he couldn't close his mouth, and cupped his hands to the surroundings. Hee hee, awakening a second-grade bloodline at the age of 12 is much stronger than some trash. Qin Fen sneered repeatedly, constantly mocking Qin Chen. Buzz. Above the square, the white crystals in front of the students lit up. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple. The colorful colors were gorgeous, and many different bloodlines were presented in front of everyone. What a magnificent scene. Among them, most people awakened first-grade bloodlines, and a small number awakened second-grade bloodlines. If someone looked carefully, they would find that most of those who awakened second-grade bloodlines were children of the royal capital's nobles, and almost all of the commoner children awakened first-grade bloodlines. At this time, about half of the students in the arena had awakened the bloodlines. Every student who awakened their bloodline was extremely excited, because only by awakening their bloodline could they be considered to have truly entered the ranks of martial artists. And those students who had not awakened the bloodlines, although they were somewhat disappointed, were not particularly disappointed. After all, for most students, awakening their bloodline was only a matter of time. Seeing that the awakening baptism was about to end, Qin Chen's white crystal was still very calm, and there was no bloodline aura on his body. If he still couldn't show any bloodline aura by the end of the baptism, then what he said before about awakening his bloodline on his own was simply false. Ha ha, I said, this kid is clearly a liar. Qin Fen laughed arrogantly, excitedly saying to the students around the stands. Humph, deceiving the academy is a heinous crime. Several students beside Qin Fen also sneered repeatedly. Qin Fen, shut up. Chen Xiao will definitely awaken his bloodline. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying were red-faced and furious, angrily shouting. Qin Fen glared at the two of them with a ferocious look. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes, and he snorted coldly, "You two have interrupted this young master's words time and time again. You'll be in for a treat in the future." At this time, a student beside him grinned and said, Qin Fen, don't worry, the next round is the martial arts competition. I don't believe that these two people will be so lucky that none of them will fall into our hands. Another student frowned and said, I'm afraid they won't even be able to pass the first round of assessment. That's a problem, but it's okay, there will be many opportunities to teach them a lesson in the future. Ha ha ha. The other students beside Qin Fen laughed together, staring at Lin Tian and Zhang Ying with ill intentions. On the high platform, Zhao Feng's face was full of excitement, his eyes fixed on Qin Yuqi, laughing in his heart. Qin Yuqi, look at your precious son, he is just a piece of trash. Dean Chu Weiken frowned slightly. If Qin Chen was really expelled from Tianxing Academy, he, the dean, would also lose face. Qin Yuqi looked at Qin Chen lovingly, looking at the white crystal in front of Qin Chen that had not moved at all. The tightly clenched hands slowly loosened. A look of love appeared in her eyes, and in the depths of her eyes, a trace of sternness flashed, and she murmured, Po Qian, our child, if he really doesn't have the talent for martial arts, then let him live an ordinary life. At first, she also had fantasies. hoping that her child could create a miracle, but in the end, the miracle did not appear. On the square, Qin Chen expressionlessly sensed the white crystal in his hand, and suddenly sneered in his heart. From the first moment he touched the crystal in his hand, he discovered that the awakening crystal in his hand was clearly a dead crystal. How vicious! Zhao Feng. Although dead crystals can also produce the light of baptism, they cannot stimulate the bloodline within a martial artist. That is to say, no martial artist can awaken their bloodline through this crystal. At the same time, even martial artists who have awakened their bloodline cannot display their bloodline aura through this crystal. Combining this with the previous situation, Qin Chen immediately realized that Gozu had clearly been bought off by Zhao Feng. What a vicious heart! Zhao Feng had clearly already expelled himself and his mother from the family, yet she still didn't want to let him go. This was too much. HMPH. Thinking that a dead crystal alone can prevent me from releasing my bloodline aura is underestimating me too much. Seeing that the baptism was about to end, Qin Chen suddenly smiled at Gozu. At this time, many people's gazes were focused on Qin Chen. Seeing that the baptism was nearing its end and Qin Chen still hadn't displayed his bloodline aura, they couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Then, they saw Qin Chen's inexplicable smile. And then, buzz! A dazzling blue light suddenly bloomed from the crystal in Qin Chen's hand. At first, the light was very weak, but in the blink of an eye, it became dazzling, and the blinding blue light almost turned into a blazing sun, stinging many people's eyes. Crackling. Streaks of lightning flowed on the blue crystal, erupting with an astonishing aura. Wow! At this moment, the entire audience was in an uproar, and everyone was stunned. My heavens, he actually awakened. He actually awakened at the last moment of the awakening ceremony. What kind of bloodline is this? It's too dazzling. The power of thunder, it's a rare bloodline. At this moment, everyone on the field was stunned, immersed in shock. Almost everyone thought that Qin Chen would not be able to awaken his bloodline at all, but they never expected that at the last moment of the bloodline awakening ceremony, Qin Chen would reveal his bloodline aura, instantly shocking everyone. Among them, the most shocked were Gozu and the others, each with their eyes wide open, as if they had seen a ghost. Impossible! How could he awaken his bloodline? I clearly tampered with his crystal, how could? Gozu stared with dead fish-like eyes, his mind in a daze. Qin Fen, who had been laughing heartily before, looked as if he had swallowed a dead fly. He also widened his eyes, revealing a look of astonishment. How could this be? Zhao Feng's phoenix eyes widened in anger as she looked at Qin Yong and said angrily, Qin Yong, what exactly is going on? Qin Yong was covered in cold sweat, which he couldn't stop wiping away. He trembled and said, Madam, this subordinate doesn't know either. Gozu clearly promised this subordinate and confidently guaranteed it, but what? Zhao Feng gritted her teeth, her face as gloomy as could be, and said murderously, if you can't even do such a small thing well, what use are you? Madam, spare me! Madam, spare me! Qin Yong hurriedly cried out in terror. Qin Yuqi looked at Qin Chen, who was surrounded by blue light, and 2 lines of clear tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Her heart was filled with incomparable joy as she murmured, Potian, did you see that? Our child has awakened his bloodline. He did it. Lingwu King Xiao Zhan smiled and said to Chu Weiken, Dean Chu, Chengxing Academy is indeed the #1 academy in the Darky Kingdom. The students are as outstanding as ever. Chu Weiken's face was full of smiles as he said, Lingwu King, you are too kind. In his heart, he was quite happy. If Qin Chen was really expelled from the academy, he, the dean, would also lose face. Fortunately, in the end, he did not fail to live up to expectations. However, the bloodline aura on Qin Chen's body felt somewhat familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere not long ago. Xiao Zhan, Chu Weiken, and the others had such a feeling in their hearts, but they couldn't remember where they had felt it before, so they had to shake their heads, thinking it was their illusion. Qin Chen restrained the light of his bloodline. A bloodline master had already recorded the bloodline level on the side and announced loudly, Qin Chen, a student in the elementary class, is 15 years old and has awakened the lightning light bloodline, rank 1. Qin Chen walked down the high platform, and Lin Tian and Zhang Ying immediately shouted excitedly, "Ha ha, Chen Shao, you finally succeeded. I said that with Chen Shao's talent, how could he not awaken his bloodline? Lightning light bloodline, this is a rare bloodline. Qin Fen, what do you have to say now?" Qin Fen recovered from his shock and snorted coldly, "HMPH, he only awakened the most trashy rank 1 bloodline. What's there to be happy about?" As soon as Qin Fen finished speaking, he immediately felt a chill all over his body. He saw many students around him glaring at him angrily. The vast majority of them had only awakened rank 1 bloodlines. Qin Chen said indifferently, "Qin Fen, don't forget our previous agreement." Qin Fen's face changed, and his figure retreated backward. "Ha ha, Qin Fen, you don't want to go back on your word, do you?" Zhang Ying sneered loudly, "Just now, so many people heard the bet between you and Chen Shao, including Dean and the strong people from the royal capital. If you go back on your word, you have to think about the consequences." Qin Fen looked at the playful gazes of the many students around him, as well as the gazes of the nobles from the royal capital on the high platform, and his heart sank suddenly. A martial artist's promise is worth 1,000 gold. If he really broke his word, he would probably no longer be looked up to by anyone in the royal capital in the future. He glared fiercely at Gozu. Under the gazes of everyone, he had no choice but to bark a few times like a dog, and then shouted in shame and anger, "I am a fool," causing a burst of laughter from all around. "Ha ha ha, Qin Fen, I didn't expect you to have a little self-awareness and know that you are a fool, ha ha." Lin Tian and Zhang Ying laughed loudly. "You guys wait for me." Qin Fen gritted his teeth, his face flushed red, and he couldn't wait to find a crack in the ground to crawl into amidst the laughter of everyone. For the nobles of the royal capital, this was just a small interlude in the Tianxing Academy's annual exam. Everyone just laughed and didn't take it to heart. After the awakening baptism, it was the martial arts competition. The martial arts competition is divided into 3 rounds. Round 1, strength assessment. Round 2, elimination battle. Round 3, arena battle. There are thousands of disciples participating in the year-end exam. If they were to compete one by one, it would take several days to complete. Therefore, the first round of strength assessment and the second round of elimination battle are to quickly select a portion of talented disciples to enter the final arena battle. Only students who pass the strength and elimination battles can participate in the final round of martial arts competition. Soon, the martial arts competition began. Round 1, strength assessment. On the square, there were 20 powerful bows with amazing weights, each weighing 50 stones. 50 meters away, there was also a row of fine steel targets. The first round of assessment requires the students to draw a 50-stone strong bow and shoot the distant fine steel target. The arrow must hit the target to count. Clang! Many students knocked arrows and drew their bows. These arrows were made of refined steel. They circulated the true energy within their bodies, aimed at the distant bullseye with their right eyes, and with a deep voice, they roared and vigorously drew their bows. Ha! A steady, dark-skinned youth exhaled deeply and shouted. Accompanying his shout, the bowstring, made from the sinews of blood beasts, was pulled open, forming a crescent shape. Thwack! He pulled the bowstring to its limit, and with a sudden release of his right hand, the black iron arrow shot out like a phantom. The youth panted heavily, his eyes fixed expectantly on the iron arrow as it struck the iron target. With a clang, the iron arrow left only a dent on the iron target before its force was exhausted, and it was flung away, landing on the ground in front of the target. A look of disappointment appeared in the youth's eyes. He waved his fist in frustration, put down the strong bow, and left with a sigh. Each person only had one chance. Failure meant elimination. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the sound of metal clashing echoed on the platform. 20 students had shot their iron arrows, but the vast majority, although hitting the target, failed to lodge their arrows in it and were eliminated. Some people didn't even hit the target. The iron arrows grazed past, and a small number couldn't even draw the strong bow, let alone shoot an arrow. In the end, only 3 out of the first group of 20 successfully hit the target, with their arrows remaining in place. One person's iron arrow only pierced half an inch into the target. The entire arrow was bent at a 60-degree angle and almost fell off. But fortunately, it was stuck on the target. The three successful individuals waved their fists excitedly and walked off the stage, filled with pride. Only 3 people passed in the first batch. It seems the difficulty of the first round is not low. That goes without saying. A 50-stone strong bow is equivalent to the strength of 5 horses. That is to say, at least a human realm mid-stage student can fully draw the bow. Moreover, there is also the iron arrow and the iron target. Even a general human realm mid-stage student may not succeed. Tianxing Academy is indeed the #1 academy in the kingdom. Although this round is a simple strength test, it tests not only strength but also the student's eyesight, accuracy, and control of power. Hey, interesting. The dignitaries, nobles, and powerhouses of the royal capital sitting on the stage began to discuss, each with a look of great interest. Soon, the second batch of students came on stage. This batch was clearly better in quality than the previous one, with 4 students remaining. Next, batch after batch, the speed was very fast. The number of people remaining in each batch was about 3 or 4. Soon, it was Qin Fen's turn to go on stage. HMPH. Qin Fen glanced coldly at Qin Chen, revealing a hint of provocation. Filled with pent-up anger, he quickly stepped onto the stage, picked up the strong bow, and with a slight effort, drew it into a full moon shape with ease. Then, thwack! The bowstring vibrated, and the black iron arrow shot out like a bolt of lightning, its speed astonishing. With a clang, the iron arrow pierced the bullseye, penetrated the 5-centimeter thick iron target, and stuck in it. The arrow shaft, made of refined steel, was still shaking. Wow! Exclamations came from the students. Too powerful. Piercing the bullseye with one arrow, how much strength does that take? No wonder he's a student of the advanced class. Qin Fen is only one step away from entering the Earth realm, right? Such power and accuracy are rare even in the advanced class. Xiao Zhan, the spirit marshal king sitting above, nodded slightly and said, "This is the most powerful one I've seen so far, right? The Qin family is indeed a strong military family." Chu Weiken smiled and said, "Qin Fen's talent is indeed good, but he can't be considered exceptionally talented. His older brother is the one who is truly amazing." A trace of admiration flashed in his eyes. "Are you talking about Qin Feng, the former pride of the royal capital?" "Exactly. I remember that this person only took 2 years to enter the Earth realm at the age of 14 and successfully graduated from the academy. Later, he joined the army and repeatedly made military achievements. I don't know what level of cultivation he has now." Xiao Zhan's eyes flashed, and he said, "This son is indeed a character." This king still remembers seeing this son at the royal palace banquet. He was a rising star and a man of influence. Alas, he suddenly sighed and said, "It's a pity that this son is over the age limit, otherwise, the task His Majesty gave this king would have been completed. Now, it's a headache." Chu Weiken's eyes flashed, and he smiled wryly. "His Majesty's task is indeed not simple. Let's see how it goes first. Hopefully, there will be someone who satisfies you in the end." On the field, the others were also discussing. Although Qin Fen had been humiliated in front of Qin Chen before, now that Qin Fen's strength was revealed, it immediately attracted the amazement of many people. Dragons have 9 sons, each different. The Qin family has geniuses like Qin Feng and Qin Fen, but they also have Qin Chen, this illegitimate son. This is really. Everyone had a mocking expression. Although Qin Chen had previously proved that he had awakened his bloodline, no one believed that Qin Chen could compare with Qin Fen. "Good. This is my Fen heir. Ha, good." Zhao Feng excitedly slapped the armrest of her chair, her face full of smiles, then glanced at Qin Yuqi with a sinister look, and sneered, "So what if Qin Chen awakened his bloodline? In the end, he is still a piece of trash. You 3, pray that you don't fall into my hands." Qin Fen walked down from the stage, staring at Qin Chen and the others with a sinister smile. Qin Chen ignored his provocation and didn't even look at him. HMPH. See how long you can pretend. I'm afraid you can't even pass this first round of strength test. Qin Fen sneered and returned to the team. Chen Xiao, it will be our turn soon. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying both looked nervous. Qin Chen patted the two of them on the shoulders and said, "Don't be nervous. With your cultivation, there is no problem passing the first round. The only thing to pay attention to is that the balance of the iron arrow is relatively poor. At the moment of shooting, it is best to focus the power on the arrowhead, so that the arrowhead drives the arrow shaft, so that it can be shot into the target in one fell swoop." Yeah. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying nodded heavily. Sure enough, it was the two of them's turn in the next batch. The two took a deep breath and stepped onto the high platform. Stepping, straightening their backs, tightening their abdomens, the two followed Qin Chen's guidance, focusing their eyes and minds, and tried their best to pull the strong bow to its limit. The true energy of the human realm mid-stage surged like a tide. Thwack, thwack. The sound of sharp arrows piercing the air rang out, and two iron arrows pierced the bullseye, the tail of the arrows trembling, but the arrowheads remained motionless, as stable as a rock. We succeeded. The two looked at each other and waved their hands excitedly. Huh. Aren't Lin Tian and Zhang Ying from the elementary class? When did their strength break through to the human realm mid-stage? A student familiar with the two asked in surprise. These two guys actually dare to enter the next round. Interesting. Interesting. Qin Fen and the several students next to him looked at each other, and a hint of excitement and ferocity appeared in their eyes. Chen Xiao, we succeeded. Returning to Qin Chen, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were still excited. Good job. Qin Chen smiled slightly, thoughtful. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying's comprehension is extremely good. Just now, I casually gave a hint, but I didn't expect the two to directly apply it in the process of shooting arrows. This kind of comprehension is not something everyone can have. Next, it was finally Qin Chen's turn to go on stage. Next, it was Qin Chen's turn to step onto the stage. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying cheered him on. Chen Xiao, go for it. Let's break into the martial arts competition together. Qin Chen smiled slightly. Huff. He lightly walked onto the stage, stood firmly with the 20 others, his expression calm. Holding the 50-stone strong bow in his hand, Qin Chen knocked an arrow and drew the bow, gently pulling, and with a buzz, he drew the strong bow into a crescent shape. Ha ha, only drawn into a crescent, trash is indeed trash. Such strength can't even pass the assessment. Hee, you can't say that. Maybe he's doing it on purpose, afraid of running into us in the next round after passing the assessment. That makes sense. Hee, coward. Qin Fen and several other students around him began to ridicule him without restraint. At another student's location, Li Qingfeng said in surprise, Wei Zhen, is he really the one you want me to teach a lesson to? Qin Chen's strength is definitely more than this. Wei Zhen stared at Qin Chen with a frown, a look of doubt on his face. He knew very well that Qin Chen's strength was definitely more than this. It was impossible for him to not be able to draw a 50-stone strong bow. But now, could it be that he was really afraid of Qin Fen, and didn't even dare to pass the first round of assessment? While everyone was doubtful, bang! Qin Chen had already released the bowstring, shooting out the iron arrow. The black iron arrow flashed out like lightning. Puff! Surprisingly, this iron arrow, only drawn into a crescent shape, hit the bullseye, with 1/3 of the arrowhead piercing into the iron target, stuck firmly in place. At this time, Qin Chen had already put down the iron bow and returned to the ranks. Damn! Qin Chen's luck is too good, isn't it? The arrowhead just happened to pierce 1/3 into the bullseye, almost falling off. Crescent. Can you pass the assessment by only drawing it into a crescent? What exactly is going on? I drew it to the full moon earlier, and the iron arrow still fell off. Qin Chen only drew it to a crescent. How? My luck is so good I'm about to vomit blood, it's too unfair. A group of students shouted indignantly. Qin Chen's luck was too good. Before, when they drew it to the full moon, many people didn't have enough strength, and the iron arrow still fell off after piercing into the iron target. But now, Qin Chen only drew it to a crescent and left the iron arrow on the target. In comparison, many people were so depressed they were about to vomit blood. What precise control! This child is not simple. Amidst the discussions, On the high platform, Lingwu King Xiaozan's originally relaxed expression suddenly became solemn, and a sharp light suddenly shot out from his sharp eyes. He is indeed not simple. Dean Chu Weiken beside him also looked solemn, staring carefully at the target for a long time, becoming more and more shocked as he looked. You saw it too, Xiaozan said in a deep voice. Chu Weiken said in shock, to shoot a 10-pound iron arrow into an iron target, generally speaking, you need at least the strength of 5 horses, that is, draw the iron bow to the full moon. But Qin Chen's arrow just now only shot out with the strength of 30 stones, that is, the strength of 3 horses, but it cleverly shot into the iron target. The reason is a rotating force attached to the arrowhead. This rotating force doubled the penetrating power of the iron arrow, so it pierced into the iron target, but Chu Weiken frowned and said, with his age and cultivation, he shouldn't be able to do this, right? It's really unbelievable that he intentionally shot it out. Could it be a lucky guess? If he really intentionally shot it out, then this child's control over power has probably reached an extremely astonishing level. Among the peak Earth-level martial artists, there are probably only a few who can achieve this. Interesting. More and more interesting. Xiaozan suddenly smiled. His Majesty gave me such a difficult task. I was originally worried that I wouldn't be able to complete it, but now it seems that there are always surprises. You won't just choose him, will you? It's hard to say now. Let's continue watching for now. Xiaozan smiled slightly. Not far away, Prince Kang smiled and said, Master Liang, Qin Chen's luck is really good. Although Prince Kang was also a top-notch expert, he couldn't directly see the clues like Lingwu King Xiaozan and the others. It's not bad. Liang Yu smiled, but he was secretly bitter, thinking, not bad my ass. Others were not clear, but he was extremely certain that Qin Chen's arrow earlier was definitely not luck, but intentional. As for how he did it, even Liang Yu himself was confused, but this did not prevent him from judging in his heart. At this time, the most excited was Qin Fen. Ha ha ha. Good. Great. I didn't expect Qin Chen to actually pass the first round. It's really great. The next round must let him meet me. I want to let him know what regret is. Qin Fen roared hysterically in his heart, constantly praying, hoping to meet Qin Chen in the next round. Qin Chen's assessment only caused a slight ripple and soon passed. The assessment continued. Finally, it was Li Qingfeng's turn to play. He was suave, with a smile on the corner of his mouth, and he had almost effortlessly pulled the strong bow to the full moon. The bow made a creaking groan, as if it couldn't bear his strength. Call out. The black iron arrow, wrapped in a terrifying force, with a bang, directly shot a hole in the 5-centimeter thick iron target. The arrow continued unabated and shot towards the outside of the square. A tutor guarding in the rear hurriedly grabbed it in his hand, so that it did not hurt the people behind. Putting down the iron bow, Li Qingfeng lightly leaped and returned to the bottom of the high platform. Wow! Only then did the crowd exclaim. The 5-centimeter thick iron target was directly shot through. This was simply heaven-defying. Earth realm. I heard that this Li Qingfeng has already broken through to the Earth realm. My God, then wouldn't he be the internally decided first place in the grand examination? It's really infuriating to compare people to each other. We are also students. Why is the gap so big? Everyone's eyes towards Li Qingfeng became different. Earth realm meant he could graduate directly from Tianxing Academy. It seemed that there was no suspense in this year-end grand examination. Who would be his opponent in the final arena battle? HMPH. Show off. Qin Fen, Wei Zhen and other disciples from the advanced class were extremely depressed when they saw Li Qingfeng's arrogant appearance. Originally, everyone was on the same starting line, but Li Qingfeng had now surpassed them, so naturally they were indignant. This Li Qingfeng is also not bad. Lingwu King Xiaozan nodded with a smile. A 17-year-old Earth realm was definitely a genius. Next, the assessment continued. When Zhao Lingshan shot her arrow, Xiaozan's eyes lit up. Zhao Lingshan did not show all her strength, only shooting the iron arrow into the target, but with Xiaozan's vision, he could see Zhao Lingshan's cultivation at a glance. Another Earth realm, and the key is that she is only 16 years old. Ha ha, good, good. Xiaozan smiled with excitement. Lingwu King, this one is Prince Kang's beloved daughter. Her talent is very good. She awakened a third-grade bloodline. Chu Weiken said with a smile. Well, with these few people, at least the task His Majesty ordered has some clues. With a stone falling in his heart, Co Zan couldn't help but feel much better. Finally, the first round of assessment concluded, with a total of over 200 people passing. Next was the selection battle. I will now announce the rules of the selection battle. Vice Dean Ge Hong leaped onto the stage and said in a loud voice, the selection battle is divided into 10 groups, each with over 20 people. Everyone will engage in a free-for-all within the designated area. The 3 who persist until the end will advance to the final arena competition to vie for the final rankings. In other words, the key to the selection battle is to see who can persist the longest. Those who persist until the end will advance to the next round. However, ganging up is strictly prohibited in the selection battle. Secondly, cheating is strictly prohibited. If no winner is determined after 30 breaths, opponents must be reselected to prevent cheating. As Ge Hong announced, several academy instructors flew to the plaza and drew 10 white circles, each with a diameter of 10 meters. The white circles in front of you are the arenas for the selection battle. The academy will randomly draw names. Students who hear the names, please go to your respective circles. Circle 1, Wufeng. Zheng Luo. Zhou Qian. Quote. The students whose names were called immediately went to the first white circle under the guidance of the instructors. Afterwards, they nervously watched the instructor reading the names, secretly praying in their hearts. The rules of the selection battle seemed simple, but they were very fair. The ones who could last until the end in each group were definitely the most powerful students, so everyone prayed that they wouldn't encounter any ruthless opponents in the group. Young Master Chen, Lin Qian and Zhang Ying were so nervous that their palms were sweating. Relax. With your cultivation levels, it's not impossible to persist until the next round. Even if you don't make it through, you must remember that for a martial artist, confidence is the most important thing. The outcome of the competition is not important. Whether you can grow in battle is what differentiates the strong from the weak, Qin Chen advised. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying nodded and said, we understand. For some reason, after hearing Qin Chen's words, the worry in their hearts instantly disappeared, and they no longer felt the previous nervousness. They just clenched their fists and secretly gathered their strength. Circle 3, Li Qingfeng. Li Qingfeng was assigned to Circle 3. When his name was called, the other contestants in Circle 3 began to sigh. Heavens, Li Qingfeng was actually assigned to our group. Is there any way for us to survive? Besides Li Qingfeng, Zhou Qiang is also in our group. He is also a veteran late-stage peak human realm martial artist, and a second-grade bloodline awakener. It seems our group 3 is a group of death. Amidst the discussions, Li Qingfeng walked into the circle expressionlessly, his expression calm, as if victory was assured. He instantly became the center of the entire Circle 3, and no one dared to approach within 2 meters of him. Next, the selection continued. Lin Qian was assigned to Circle 4. Young Master Chen, Zhang Ying, I'm going over. He smiled confidently at the 2 of them and stepped into Circle 4. Soon after, Zhang Ying was also called into Circle 5. Only Qin Chen remained. HMPH. Kid, wait until you meet me later, and see if you can still be so calm. Qin Fen had been staring at Qin Chen coldly, his eyes fierce and resentful, and he snorted coldly. However, Qin Fen's wish was not fulfilled. He was called into Circle 7, while Qin Chen was still on the stage. Damn it. Qin Fen was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Qin Fen, don't worry. Several of us haven't been called yet. There's a high probability that we'll be arranged with that Qin Chen. When the time comes, our brothers will teach that kid a good lesson for you, he. The few people beside Qin Fen said with a sneer, looking at Qin Chen playfully, like a cat looking at a mouse. Okay, then I'll leave it to you guys. Remember, if you have the chance, be sure to cripple that kid. A flash of sternness passed through Qin Fen's eyes. What? The people beside Qin Fen were slightly startled, frowning and saying, Qin Fen, are you serious? Qin Chen is a member of your Qin family. If you cripple him, won't your Qin family fight us to the death? HMPH. Qin Chen was expelled from my Qin family not long ago. Now he can't be considered a member of my Qin family. Why would my Qin family fight you to the death? Besides, in the year-end exam, accidents happen, and if you accidentally use a little too much force, no one would dare to say anything, right? Blame it on Qin Chen's low cultivation level. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and he insists on participating in the competition, Qin Fen said with a grim expression. All right. The few people beside Qin Fen all licked their tongues. Crippling the Qin family's young master, just thinking about it made him excited. Amidst the excitement of the crowd, the arrangement of the students in the next 3 groups also came to an end. Haha, it's actually us two and the Qin Chen in the same group. In the end, Qin Chen was assigned to Group 8. At the same time, 2 senior class students beside Qin Fen, Li Ping and Zhou Nan, were also assigned there. Li Ping and Zhou Nan were as excited as if they had won the lottery. Swish. Leaping into Circle 8, the two of them stared at Qin Chen not far away with a smile that was not a smile, with a faint sneer at the corners of their mouths, and said to each other, between the two of us, who do you think would be better at teaching Qin Chen a lesson? Ha ha ha. Seeing everyone enter the circle, Vice Dean Ge Hong, who was in charge of the proceedings, took a deep breath and said, the selection begins. Boom, boom, boom. Almost at the same time as Ge Hong's voice fell, the students inside who had been accumulating momentum for a long time took action one after another, rushing towards their chosen opponents at the first moment. In an instant, the vast Tru Chi was like a volcanic eruption, exploding with a bang on the vast plaza. More than a dozen people were instantly blasted out of the circle and fell off the arena. Among them, the most dazzling was not Li Qingfeng. In Circle 9, a dark-skinned young man wearing a cyan martial robe, at the same time as Ge Hong spoke, used his palm as a knife, slashing towards the several people beside him with a palm. With a bang, the terrifying Tru Chi gathered into a vast ocean and swept out, blasting away several people at once, including a senior class disciple. A vacuum zone instantly formed around him. What? Who is this person? What terrifying palm power? This person's Tru Chi is released outwards, condensed and not scattered. He is definitely a Earth Realm expert. I recognize him. This person is called Wang Qiming. He is a disciple of the senior class, a commoner student, known as the Knife Obsessed. He holds a knife all day long and practices swordsmanship in the back mountain of the academy. It is said that he even holds a knife when he sleeps, so he has the title of Knife Obsessed. I didn't expect him to have broken through to the Earth Realm as well. This year-end exam is going to be interesting. On the high platform, Spirit Marshal King Xiao Zhan looked at Wang Qiming, squinting his eyes and said, this kid, using his palm as a knife, he can actually display the artistic conception of swordsmanship. He's a bit interesting. Dean Chu Weiken was puzzled and said, I haven't paid attention to this person before. It seems that I don't know enough about the students. However, the top 3 in this exam should be among Li Qingfeng, Zhao Lingshan, and this Wang Qiming. I wonder which one does Spirit Marshal King prefer. It's hard to say. Li Qingfeng is sharp and assertive, Zhao Lingshan is introverted and reserved, and Wang Qiming is domineering and brave. The 3 are evenly matched in cultivation. If you ask who is the strongest, it depends on who's on the spot reaction and trump cards are stronger. However, when it comes to the future prospects of the 3, I am most optimistic about Wang Qiming. Wang Qiming. Chu Weiken looked puzzled. Wang Qiming is, after all, from a commoner background and lacks foundation. Suddenly, Chu Weiken thought of Xiao Zhan's background. He had heard that the Spirit Marshal King, known as the God of War of the Great Qi Kingdom, was a commoner in his youth. He relied on his own efforts to gradually grow into a top expert in the Great Qi Kingdom, and he suddenly understood. By the way, that Qin Chen is also good, but his cultivation is a bit low. At this time, Xiao Zhan suddenly said, Qin Chen. Chu Weiken almost forgot about Qin Chen and looked towards the square. At this time, half of the people had already been eliminated, and the scene had entered an extremely heated stage. Circle number 8. A senior class disciple stood next to Qin Chen from the very beginning. The moment the battle began, he immediately started fighting with Qin Chen. Boom, boom, boom. This person was wearing a fiery red martial robe. When he attacked, his fist wind was fierce, and waves of scorching heat swept out, emitting a shocking roar. The range of his fist power swept nearly 10 feet, and an overwhelming aura swept across, and no one dared to approach. Surprisingly, Qin Chen, who was in the center of the fiery waves, stood still. His hands were across his chest, like a large shield, easily blocking the opponent's fiery wave attack, as if such an impact had no effect on him. Ha! Xiao Zhan and Chu Weiken exclaimed in surprise. Qin Chen's cultivation seemed not as simple as it appeared on the surface. Li Ping and Zhou Nan were also surprised. Zhou Nan, I'll deal with this Qin Chen first. Li Ping roared with a grim smile, kicking away the student who was originally fighting him, and lunged towards Qin Chen. At the same time, he shouted sharply at the student in the fiery red martial robe, "Boy, get out of here now and leave this Qin Chen to me." HMPH, that depends on whether you have the ability to do so. The student in the fiery red martial robe snorted coldly, his eyes revealing a fierce look. He actually abandoned Qin Chen and punched Li Ping. Flame serpent eruption. Boom! A fiery red fist wave rushed into the sky, like a fiery red flame serpent, opening its ferocious jaws and biting towards Li Ping. Courting death. Li Ping shouted angrily, and a surge of light blue true energy erupted fiercely. The martial robe on his body instantly bulged, and he punched towards the center of the flame serpent. With a boom, the light blue fist force instantly smashed the head of the flame serpent into powder. Then, the terrifying fist force swept through everything like a hot knife through butter, and finally slammed into the chest of the student in the fiery red martial robe. Crack! The sound of bones breaking came from his chest, and the student in the fiery red martial robe spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with horror as he flew backwards, falling heavily outside the circle. After punching his opponent away, Li Ping landed in front of Qin Chen and grinned hideously. "Boy, kneel down and beg me for mercy, and I might consider giving you a decent death. Otherwise, I will let you know what it means to wish you were dead." Light blue true energy surrounded his body, and the sharp true energy was like a sharp blade, cutting through the surrounding air, exuding a palpitating sharp aura. Li Ping looked at Qin Chen arrogantly, with a confident and superior look. Qin Chen sneered. In this world, no one has ever dared to talk to him like this. All the people who dared to talk to him like this in his previous life were already dead. Faced with the arrogant Li Ping, Qin Chen only gave him one word in return: scram. "Boy, you're courting death." Li Ping was furious, and his whole body's true energy erupted fiercely. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's, and he leaped up, joining his hands in front of him, turning them into sharp palm blades, and slashed down towards Qin Chen, with a powerful and unmatched momentum that attracted attention. Instead of being a good person, you have to be a dog of Qin Fen. Take my punch, and I'll spare your dog life. Faced with the aggressive Li Ping, Qin Chen was expressionless, a flash of sternness flashed in his eyes. The right hand behind his back suddenly moved to his chest, steady as a rock, motionless. Looking for death, Li Ping was furious, trembling with anger. Boom! The true energy of the late stage of the human realm was urged to the extreme. Yo! A long cry pierced the sky, and the light blue true energy in front of Li Ping's hands condensed into a cyan falcon, roaring proudly for 9 days, like an eagle striking the sky, pouncing fiercely towards Qin Chen. Eagle soaring 9 heavens. The strong energy pushed away the void, making a violent whirring sound that stung people's ears. The sharp energy was invincible, as if it wanted to cut the entire arena in two. All the disciples within 10 feet of the area retreated in horror, fearing that they would be affected by the aftermath of the battle between the two. Such a domineering palm force caused everyone's expression to change drastically. This Li Ping was indeed a disciple of the senior class, and his strength was by no means ordinary. Only Qin Chen was expressionless, coldly watching Li Ping pounce down ferociously. He didn't even blink his eyes throughout the entire process, until the other party's palms were about to strike his chest, then he punched out. Basic fist technique, subduing tiger fist. Roar. As if a tiger's roar faintly echoed through the square, everyone widened their eyes, dumbfounded. What Qin Chen displayed was actually the basic fist technique subduing tiger fist that all pulse condensation stage martial apprentices would use. My God, is he courting death? Before the shock in their hearts could subside, everyone saw that, in the next moment, Qin Chen's right fist and Li Ping's palm slammed together. Suddenly, the energy surged wildly, and the strong energy bloomed like fireworks, exploding with a bang, stirring up a violent explosion. A fierce tiger was majestic and awe-inspiring, like a tiger king descending the mountain, instantly pouncing on the cyan falcon. The falcon let out a miserable scream and was bitten hard by the tiger, instantly torn to pieces. PFFT. How Li Ping came, how he retreated. His sleeves were torn apart, and the sound of bones cracking came from his arms. Traces of blood spurted out from around his arms like a fountain, and he couldn't stop it no matter what. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, his face full of astonishment as he was blasted away. His eyes were dazed, and he didn't even know what had happened. With this kind of cultivation, you want me to wish I were dead? With a cold smile, a cold light flashed in Qin Chen's eyes. He didn't want to let the other party off so easily. He stomped on the ground with both feet, and his figure was like a phantom, instantly catching up with Li Ping who was flying backwards. You. Li Ping looked terrified, his eyes widened, and he wanted to fight back, but out of control, he was unable to react at all. He could only watch Qin Chen's right leg flash like lightning, like a dragon coming out of a pool, and kick him hard in the chest. Bang! Wah! Opening his mouth and spitting out a miserable mouthful, accompanied by the clear sound of bones breaking, Li Ping's entire body was like a cannonball being fired, instantly flying out of the range of the circle, and then slammed heavily on the square, sliding backwards for more than 10 meters before finally stopping. His body was a bloody mess, he passed out, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. Quiet. Deathly silence. The audience was silent, and everyone looked at Qin Chen in shock, their mouths wide open and their eyeballs bulging. Amidst the shock of the crowd, Qin Chen lightly clapped his hands, as if he had done something insignificant, then looked at Zhou Nan not far away with a sneer. You were one of those who said they would teach me a lesson, right? Let me see what kind of strength you have to dare to say you'd teach me a lesson. Everyone looked at Zhou Nan, remembering that Zhou Nan and Li Ping had indeed been together earlier, saying they would teach Qin Chen a lesson. Zhou Nan's expression changed slightly, he swallowed, and pretended to be calm. HMPH, do you think I'm a waste like Li Ping? You've picked the wrong person if you want to establish your authority on me. I advise you not to make a mistake. Ha ha, make a mistake. Qin Chen couldn't help but sneer. If you come to me, it's nothing, but if I come to you, it's making a mistake. Hee hee, you really think highly of yourself. Enough nonsense. If you can take a punch from me and not die, I'll spare your dog life. Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Chen's figure turned into a phantom, suddenly shooting towards Zhou Nan. Roar. A roar resounded through the square, like a dragon's cry and a tiger's roar, shaking the heavens. At this moment, Qin Chen was like a tiger descending from the mountain, the majesty of the king of beasts, undisguised. The intense power caused Zhou Nan's expression to change drastically, his scalp tingling, and he subconsciously wanted to retreat. No, if I retreat today, I will definitely become a laughing stock in the royal capital, and I will never be able to hold my head up for the rest of my life. Li Ping was defeated by that kid. It must have been because he was careless and didn't use his full strength, which led to this result. As long as I, Zhou Nan, get serious, how could I be afraid of him? What's more, when it comes to defense, I'm much stronger than Li Ping. Zhou Nan's mind raced with various thoughts, and finally, he made up his mind and shouted sharply. Iron body skill. Zhou Nan's true energy was stimulated to the extreme, and with a buzzing sound, a layer of ethereal gray-brown light lingered around him, as if he was wearing an extra ethereal garment. This martial skill was the yellow rank upper grade defensive martial skill that Zhou Nan had been diligently practicing in the academy, the iron body skill. With iron body in place, Zhou Nan's confidence greatly increased, his eyes revealing a ferocious aura, and he slammed his fists forward. Barbarian King's Fist. Boom. Two terrifying fist energies swept forward, and the air in front was instantly blasted, as if two air bombs exploded out of thin air, and the astonishing energy swept towards Qin Chen like a hurricane. Also a yellow rank upper grade martial skill, the Barbarian King's Fist, was like the Barbarian King descending, dominating the world, and the terrifying aura enveloped Qin Chen, as if it could blast a small mountain. In the terrifying energy, Qin Chen's expression remained unchanged. His eyes swept over the air current in front, and his hands suddenly formed claws, fiercely inserted into the fist energy, and then divided it to both sides. Boom. Tear. The terrifying fist energy was divided into two by Qin Chen, crushed into powder, and in Zhou Nan's horrified gaze, his entire body's openings were revealed. Not good. Zhou Nan's expression changed drastically, and his figure retreated violently, trying to avoid Qin Chen's attack. But how could Qin Chen give him a chance? He exerted a slight force under his feet, his speed soared, and he suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Nan, and just threw a punch straight out. Basic fist technique. Teizu long fist. The plain and unremarkable fist was unstoppable and swept away everything. By the time Zhou Nan reacted, Qin Chen's right fist had already hit his true energy iron body. Bang! The iron body condensed from true energy was fragile and vulnerable, instantly falling apart, and the strong fist energy shook Zhou Nan's internal organs, making him feel pain beyond words. After the iron fist shattered the true energy shield, its momentum did not diminish, and accompanied by the sound of dragon's roar and tiger's roar, it crashed into Zhou Nan's chest. I'll fight you. Zhou Nan roared, unexpectedly not dodging or avoiding. Knowing the crisis, he ignored Qin Chen's attack on him, hugged his fists, widened his eyes, and frantically bombarded Qin Chen's head. This was to exchange injuries for injuries, to perish together. HMPH. Ridiculous. A sneer flashed in Qin Chen's eyes, and the fist energy of his right fist spewed out fiercely. Boom. A muffled roar resounded through the square, accompanied by the crisp sound of bone cracking. The muscles on Zhou Nan's chest directly dented an inch, and he spat out blood, and his whole person was thrown out like a kite with a broken string. At this time, his desperate attack was still a foot away from Qin Chen's head. You want to perish together with me with such a punching speed? Too slow. Like the sound of the 9 nether regions lingering in his mind, before Zhou Nan could even fall to the ground, his peripheral vision caught a glimpse of a shadow shooting like a sharp sword, catching up with his flying self, and a strong wind swept fiercely towards his back. No! Zhou Nan roared in horror. At this moment, his heart was full of regret, and there was only one thought in his mind, which was why he had provoked Qin Chen, this evil star, and why he didn't run away at the beginning. Puff. The next moment, a huge force kicked fiercely on his back, and his body was like a broken sack, instantly soaring into the high sky, and then falling heavily. Bang! In a sound that made everyone's scalp tingle, Zhou Nan slammed heavily beside Li Ping, and also fainted. Huff. Qin Chen gently exhaled. When he was at the middle stage of the human rank, he could teach Wei Zhen, who was at the peak of the late stage of the human rank, a lesson. Now that he had broken through to the late stage, how could Li Ping and Zhou Nan, these two ordinary late-stage human rank students, be his opponents? If it weren't for the fact that this was the end-of-year exam of Tianxing Academy, Qin Chen would have crippled the two of them long ago. Wow! At this time, all the students in Circle 8 retreated in horror, looking at Qin Chen in shock, as if they were looking at a monster. Even the instructors on the field were stunned. Li Ping and Zhou Nan won't be beaten to death, will they? Suddenly, someone said with a trembling voice. Not good. The instructors on the square finally came back to their senses, and with a whoosh, whoosh, two instructors hurriedly came to Li Ping and Zhou Nan's side, helped them up, and after checking their breathing, they breathed a sigh of relief. Although Li Ping and Zhou Nan looked miserable, fortunately, their lives were not in danger. Soon, the two were taken down for treatment by the instructors of Tianxing Academy. The entire square then erupted in an uproar. Two disciples of the advanced class are not his match in a few moves. When did Qin Chen become so powerful? If I remember correctly, more than a month ago, Qin Chen was still seriously injured by Wei Zhen of the primary class on the Academy's martial arts stage, and almost died. How could his cultivation have improved so quickly in just over a month? Hiss. This Qin Chen is amazing. It was already surprising enough that he awakened his bloodline before, but I didn't expect that now. TSK, it seems that no one in the academy will dare to insult him casually in the future. All the students present were talking about it, with shocked expressions. If it were someone else, they would definitely not be so surprised, but the other party was Qin Chen, who had been unable to awaken his bloodline for a long time and was almost expelled from the academy, so everything was different. Chenair. Below the plaza, Qin Yuqi was in tears, extremely excited. Pa. Zhao Feng accidentally crushed the corner of a chair beside her into powder, her teeth chattering with rage. Qin Chen, you good for nothing, how is this possible? Qin Fen was also shocked by the scene in Ring 8. He roared, staring at Qin Chen with a grimace, his eyes shooting out terrifyingly cold light. Qin Fen, it seems your dog didn't fulfill your wishes. Qin Chen sneered. Qin Chen, you can be arrogant now, but you better pray you don't fall into my hands later, or I'll let you know what it means to wish you were dead. Qin Fen was so enraged that he jumped up and down, fuming. He roared and threw a punch, instantly sending the student who had been fighting him flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Hey, interesting. No wonder Wei Zhen values him so much. In Ring 3, Li Qingfeng glanced at Qin Chen indifferently, a cold smile curving his lips. Bang! His body shook, and a student closest to him was instantly blasted out of the ring, landing on the ground in a disheveled heap, completely dazed, not even knowing how he was eliminated. Spurred on by Qin Chen, the battles on the field instantly became more brutal. Boom, 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 boom. Intense rumbling sounds never ceased, streams of true energy swept across the field, as if fireworks were constantly blooming, dazzling and beautiful. In Ring 8, everyone stayed far away from Qin Chen, no one daring to provoke him again. Hey, this Qin Chen is really not simple. Defeating Li Ping and Zhou Nan is nothing, what's difficult is that he used the subduing Tiger Fist and the Teizu Chang Fist. These two sets of fist techniques are the most basic in the Tianwu Continent, belonging to the entry level, yet he defeated the profound grade superior Savage King Overlord Fist and the Kangying Fist technique. It can be seen that this person's understanding of martial arts has reached a very amazing level. The future is worth looking forward to. Spiritual Marshal King Xiao Zhan and Chu Weiken looked bright, smiling at each other. At this time, the situation on the field had gradually become clear. The three students in rings 1, 3, 6, 9, and 10 had already been selected. Next, the three students in the other rings were also selected. In ring 4, although Lin Tian persisted until the end, his cultivation was still a bit lacking. At the last moment, he was eliminated, missing out on the third round of the arena competition. In the end, only ring 5 remained. There were no particularly strong or particularly weak contestants in ring 5, so the competition was the most intense. At this time, there were still 6 people left, fighting in pairs, locked in a difficult struggle. Zhang Ying was also among them, fighting against a senior class student at the late stage of the human realm. Having fought to this point, Zhang Ying had almost exhausted his inner strength. His steps were unsteady, and he could fall at any moment. If his opponent hadn't also been injured a little, it would have been difficult to hold on until now. Even so, Zhang Ying was in constant danger and was about to be defeated. Just then, another group of combatants had already determined the winner. Only 5 people remained on the field. All right, stop. Ji Hong shouted, saying, "You 5, don't fight anymore. All of you enter the next round." Everyone was stunned. Ji Hong explained, "In the third round, the arena competition, there are a total of 32 contestants. They will draw lots to fight in pairs. The winners will enter the next round. There will be a total of 5 battles to determine the first place." Everyone then realized that there was one group that had to select 5 people in order to make up the numbers. What good luck. Many people looked at the people in the 5th group with jealousy, especially after seeing that Zhang Ying's cultivation was only at the middle stage of the human realm. They were so depressed that they almost vomited blood. In this second round, how many senior class students at the late stage of the human realm had been eliminated? This student at the middle stage of the human realm was actually able to make it to the final round. He really had dog shit luck. Now, everyone has half an hour to rest, heal your injuries, recuperate, and prepare for the next round of the arena competition. After Ji Hong finished speaking, he returned to the host stage. Young Master Chen, I've entered the third round. Zhang Ying came to Qin Chen and said in disbelief, unable to suppress the excitement in his heart. Zhang Ying, congratulations. Lin Qian walked over and said with a smile. Luck. I'm just lucky. Zhang Ying scratched the back of his head and said awkwardly, if it were you, it would probably be the same. This is not luck, Qin Chen said with a smile. Zhang Ying, Lin Qian, you must all remember that sometimes, luck is also a kind of strength. Those who can truly survive to the end and become top powerhouses on the continent will not be people with bad luck. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying were stunned, both thoughtful. Around the plaza, there was also much discussion at this time. Who do you think will win the next round of the arena competition? Hey, if you ask me, it's either Li Qingfeng or Wang Qiming. Zhao Lingshan is also good. I didn't expect the goddess to have broken through to the earth realm without realizing it. I also support Princess Lingshan, he. A bunch of mindless guys. Although Princess Lingshan is strong, she is, after all, a woman. How can she compare to young Marquis Li Qingfeng? Who says a woman can't compare to a man? Isn't your mother a woman? Kid, say that again. HMPH. What if I say it 10 times? I'm not afraid of you. If you have the guts, after the great examination, meet me at the back mountain of the academy. Meet. Then meet. Who's afraid of who? Many students argued about who could win first place, even turning their anger on each other. The vast majority of the students favored Li Qingfeng, and most of them were girls, each looking like a love-struck idiot. There was also a portion of people who favored Zhao Lingshan. These people were all boys. Zhao Lingshan, as one of the 4 great beauties of the Darky Kingdom, naturally had very high popularity. Of course, there were also quite a few who favored Wang Qiming, but most of them were commoner children. These 3 were undoubtedly the top 3 choices. On the plaza, some people even secretly opened a betting pool. Betting on Li Qingfeng, 1 to 1.3. Betting on Zhao Lingshan, 1 to 1.5. Betting on Wang Qiming, 1 to 1.7. Qin Chen was also among them, with odds of 1 to 10. Although Qin Chen had shown amazing strength before, shocking everyone, he was, after all, not deeply established and had not broken through to the earth realm. Many people felt that his strongest point was only in the top 10 or so, and being able to enter the top 10 was already amazing. It was almost impossible to get first place. But even so, there were still people on the field who were very unhappy. It was Zhao Feng. This kid Qin Chen has such deep schemes. I didn't expect him to be hiding his strength all along, only revealing it after leaving the Qin family. I underestimated him before. Zhao Feng gritted her teeth, her eyes revealing a strong killing intent, and she turned her head and said, Qin Yong, pass down the message that in this third round of the arena competition, no matter what method Go Zhu uses, I must have Qin Chen face Fener, and then let Fener cripple that kid. If Go Zhu can't do it, tell him that my Qin family's money is not something anyone can take. Zhao Feng's expression was twisted, like a cold poisonous snake. Yes, madam, Qin Yong quietly retreated. When the time came, Ji Hong stood up and announced loudly, the final round of the Heavenly Star Academy's year-end exam officially begins. The rules are the same as before. In the martial arts competition, stop when appropriate. It is strictly forbidden to intentionally injure or kill anyone. Violators will be severely punished. After speaking, Ji Hong glanced at the supervising instructors on the plaza. One of the instructors immediately stepped forward and said, the first round of the competition will now begin. He reached into a wooden box filled with wooden plaques engraved with the names of the students, randomly drew 2, and announced loudly, the first match is Zhao Guang versus Li Feng. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 students immediately leaped to the center of the plaza. One student used a saber, while the other used palm techniques. At the instructor's command, the 2 quickly engaged in a fierce battle, exchanging blows in the arena. The arena competition did not restrict the use of weapons. The saber-wielding student's swordsmanship was fierce, forcing the other student to retreat continuously. However, the other student was not to be outdone. While retreating, he constantly sought opportunities, and his gloved palms moved like rolling waves, protecting himself perfectly. Both of them were at the late stage of the human realm, and neither would give in. They quickly exchanged 60 or 70 moves. Whirlwind saber technique. Dissection palm. Neither of them wanted to continue the entanglement, so they each unleashed the unique skills. The saber light and palm winds collided, creating a violent roar. Bang! Zhao Guang, who used the saber technique, was slightly better. The saber light split open the opponent's palm shadows, leaving a saber mark on the chest of the opponent's robe, and blood seeped out. Li Feng, who used palm techniques, was unwilling to admit defeat and wanted to resist, but Zhao Guang took the opportunity to close in and struck the opponent's chest with the back of his saber, sending him flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood and couldn't get up for a long time. Zhao Guang wins. Accompanied by the instructor's loud shout, the first group's competition came to an end. Soon, the second group of contestants took the stage. This round's contestant was named Chen Shaoqing. This person was very unlucky and actually encountered Li Qingfeng, a favorite to win the championship. Just admit defeat, Li Qingfeng said indifferently as he came onto the stage, with a sense of indifference, not even looking at the other person. Li Qingfeng, although you are strong, I, Chen Shaoqing, would also like to learn from you, Chen Shaoqing roared, angered by the other party's attitude, and his whole person transformed into a gust of wind and a hurricane, rushing towards Li Qingfeng. Vajra's wrathful gaze. Rumble. The air exploded in an instant, emitting a violent roar. Chen Shaoqing's hands embraced like iron balls, and his whole person rushed out like a mountain. Bang! The next moment, he flew back the way he had come, and the crisp sound of bones resounded in everyone's ears. Chen Shaoqing fell to the ground in a sorry state, his hands twisted, and he coughed up blood. Li Qingfeng wins. In the instructor's announcement, Li Qingfeng lightly leaped and returned to the stage. He didn't even look at Chen Shaoqing throughout the entire process. Chen Shaoqing is really courting death. He didn't admit defeat when he met Li Qingfeng. Although they are both advanced class students, the gap between the two is too big to reason with. Ordinary advanced class students can't withstand a single move from Li Qingfeng. Amidst the crowd's discussion, the instructor drew the next round of contestants. Match after match, the competition quickly progressed. Some were intense and heated, while others quickly determined the winner. Learning from Chen Shaoqing's experience, one contestant directly and dejectedly gave up and admitted defeat when he encountered Wang Qiming. But no one on the field ridiculed him. Wang Qiming was one of the 3 experts who had broken through to the early stage of the Earth realm. Even students at the peak of the late stage of the human realm were not his opponents. Ordinary students didn't need to compete at all, it would be a waste of time. The 8th round. The next match is Qin Chen versus Qin Chen. Hearing the instructor call his name, Qin Chen's expression was calm as he leaped onto the stage. Qin Chen's face was very unsightly. He was a student who had just entered the advanced class this year. Although his cultivation was at the late stage of the human realm, he was not an old-timer at the late stage of the human realm. He had confidence against any advanced class disciple, but when he encountered Qin Chen, he immediately felt pressure. Qin Chen, don't think you're so great just because you defeated Li Ping and Zhou Nan. The martial skills mastered by the students in the advanced class are all different, and their strengths are also vastly different, Qin Chen snorted coldly as soon as he came onto the stage, to boost his morale. Have you said enough? If you've said enough, let's begin. Qin Chen could tell at a glance that the other party was already intimidated and was deliberately talking so much nonsense just to cheer himself up. He leaped forward, circulated the true energy in his body, and directly threw a punch. This punch was unremarkable, and people couldn't feel the slightest sharpness. Ha ha, he actually dares to underestimate me. That's great. Qin Chen was overjoyed. He circulated the true energy in his body to the extreme and threw a punch. Overlord lifting the cauldron. Rumble. It was as if a thunderbolt struck on a clear day. The air in front of him emitted a thunderous roar and instantly exploded. Underestimate me. Go down. Qin Chen was born with great strength. Ordinary late-stage human realm cultivators only had the strength of 10 horses, but he had 15. Seizing the opportunity that Qin Chen underestimated him, he used all his strength to knock Qin Chen off the stage. PFFT. When the two fists collided, Shung Tao's joyful expression suddenly changed. His pupils constricted violently, and he only felt a huge force invading his entire body. A creaking sound came from his arm. The next moment, his body involuntarily flew out, and he spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. On the spectator stand, everyone's faces showed surprise. They thought the two sides would be entangled for a while, but unexpectedly, the outcome was decided in one move. Qin Yuqi's face showed surprise and disbelief. She didn't expect Qin Chen's cultivation to be so strong. Zhao Feng and Prince Qi snorted coldly, their faces livid. In the contestant seats below, Qin Fen snorted, "I'll let you be arrogant for a while. When you meet me below, you'll regret insisting on reaching this round." Qin Chen's match only made everyone a little surprised, but they weren't too shocked. After all, Qin Chen had previously defeated Li Ping and Zhou Nan, demonstrating sufficient strength. "Ha, Master Liang, the Qin Chen you're optimistic about is indeed extraordinary. I heard that this person was only a human realm initial stage martial artist more than a month ago. I didn't expect that in just over a month, he would have broken through to the human realm late stage, and his martial arts strength is also extremely strong. I estimate that this person has a chance to enter the top 10 in this exam." Prince Kang knew that Liang Yu was very optimistic about Qin Chen, so he immediately praised him with a smile. Liang Yu's eyebrows twitched. He glanced at Prince Kang but didn't say a word. Top 10. He was underestimating Qin Chen too much. For some reason, Liang Yu had a very firm feeling in his heart that if a real fight broke out, Li Qingfeng and the others, these Earth Realm martial artists, might not be Qin Chen's opponents. Next, the competition continued. Originally, the most eye-catching match was Zhao Lingshan's, but disappointingly, with Li Qingfeng and Wang Qiming ahead, the student who was drawn directly admitted defeat after taking the stage, causing people to shout in disappointment. In the blink of an eye, it was the 13th round. The 13th match, Qin Fen versus Zhang Ying. Zhang Ying's face suddenly changed. How could it be him? Lin Qian's face also changed.